Hearing the cold and arrogant woman's words, even though she was a shadowy figure, she could not help but feel shocked. A divine master could not even kill a material attack or a soul attack. A divine master could kill 8 true saint-level disciples of her supreme emotion valley with just one sword? A divine master was 10 times more powerful than the most influential person she had ever met. This man, the shadowy figure stared at Jian Wushuang with a strange light in her eyes. I have no intention of making an enemy of the supreme emotion valley, so let me take Shuang Air with me. From now on, we will not interfere with each other. Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. You killed 8 true saints of the supreme emotion valley, and you still dare to talk to me like this? What a joke! The shadowy figure's voice turned cold. Die with that disciple of the supreme emotion valley. As soon as the shadowy figure finished her words, she attacked. She pointed with one hand, and the void in front of her penetrated directly. Immediately, a vast, giant finger with a layer of snow white directly attacked Jian Wushuang. The moment the giant finger stretched out, it was as if a great snowfall fell from heaven and earth. Jian Wushuang's pupils suddenly shrank. He had already sensed the power of this finger. This finger had already exceeded the scope of the immortal saint. I have already displayed the pressure of a perfect life level, and I have also performed the heaven-cleaving skill. The will of heaven should have sensed my existence. If I use it again, the will of heaven will probably lock onto me in an instant. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, but his eyes were fixed on Lung Rushuang, who was quietly floating in the void in front of him. A touch of scarlet suddenly burst out from the depths of his eyes. I'll risk it all for Shuang Air. Jian Wushuang let out a fierce shout, but he raised the Blood Mountain sword in his hand again. The moment he raised it, the endless pressure from the life level crazily gathered in the Blood Mountain sword again. Heaven-cleaving skill. Jian Wushuang used it again. This time, because of his previous experience, its power was even stronger than the sword he used to kill the 8 immortal saints of the Supreme Emotion Valley. Kill! The Blood Mountain sword in Jian Wushuang's hand fell with the pressure from the endless life level. It was also a vast and majestic sword sea, but it instantly combined and turned into a real heaven-cleaving sword after it swept out. In front of this sword, even heaven had to retreat. In the blink of an eye, the heaven-cleaving sword collided with the vast giant finger. Bang! This collision was like 2 realms and 2 large worlds colliding crazily. The whole world roared and trembled under this collision. After the collision, the 3-meter-tall hazy figure in the void trembled slightly and then took 3 steps back. Jian Wushuang also took a few steps back, and the sword light had completely dissipated. She forced me to retreat? The figure was full of disbelief. She was a rule master. Even if it was not the original body but a consciousness clone that could only use 10% of its strength, its battle strength was enough to sweep away the Saint Realm. But now she was fighting a divine master head-on, and they were evenly matched? She found it hard to believe, and Jian Wushuang was also very surprised. My sword strike gave me the feeling that it was mighty, but this person only came with a consciousness clone, and he blocked my sword strike head-on. The Master of Rules is so powerful. Jian Wushuang was also praising it in his heart. Both of them were shocked. However, just as they were shocked, Look at the sky! An expert from the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion exclaimed. Everyone present, including the kneeling experts, raised their heads with difficulty and looked up at the sky. When they saw it, they were stunned. They saw that the sky above had long changed color. Previously, there were only a large number of dark clouds sweeping over from all directions, but now, the dark clouds were filled with rolling thunderbolts. These thunderbolts flickered crazily, and in the blink of an eye, they had already formed a vast lightning sea. This lightning sea was not formed by the divine power or special power of the cultivator himself. It was purely formed by nature. This was a vast lightning sea of heaven and earth. In the middle of the lightning sea, numerous dark purple thunderbolts as thick as buckets were dancing wildly. Each of these dark purple thunderbolts caused the numerous experts below, including the immortal saints, to feel fear and trepidation in their hearts. Without any warning, Two of the dark purple thunderbolts collided with each other. This collision did not create too much movement, but there were threads of electric arcs that scattered out. These threads of dark purple electric arcs, they suddenly descended from the void above. The first thing they did was to descend onto the sect protecting great formation around the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's sect protecting formation was one of the greatest things that the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had relied on over the long years. No one had been able to blast open this great formation for so many years forcefully. But now, as this dark purple lightning bolt descended, boom! The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's sect protecting formation let out a violent rumble. After that, the entire great formation collapsed, completely disintegrating. The divine power that filled the sky also spread out wildly in all directions. The sect protecting formation, which the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had relied on for so many years, actually collapsed. The sect protecting formation collapsed? How is this possible? Even the Immortal Saint, whose strength is incomparably terrifying, wouldn't be able to shake this formation even if he used all his strength. But now, just a wisp of lightning from the sea of lightning could directly destroy the sect-protecting formation. Just how terrifying is the power contained within that sea of lightning? Inside and outside the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, countless experts were highly shocked, their faces filled with terror. In the sky above, rumbles sounded out one after another. This was the roar of the heavens and earth, the roar of the heavens. A terrifying might madly crush down, wanting to annihilate everything. This is the will of the heavenly Tao. The hazy figure was the most knowledgeable. When he saw the sea of thunder, he immediately reacted. It's the will of the heavenly Tao, and it's very obvious that it's coming for him. The hazy figure looked at Jian Wushuang, but his heart was filled with great waves. This kid is just a divine master, but the will of the heavenly Tao suppressed him? He defied the heavenly Tao? The hazy figure roared in his heart. The will of the heavenly Tao controlled the heavenly Tao, and it was the most supreme power in this world. The absolute beginning divine realm was boundless, and there were countless experts who dared to defy the heavenly Tao. The masters of laws did not dare, and the masters of the sage realm did not dare either. But now, a mere divine master actually defied the heavenly Tao. Who is this kid? What's his background? The shadowy figure stared at Jian Wushuang, full of shock and curiosity. Rumble. In the endless thunderclouds, a destructive power had already spread out. But this destructive power had completely locked onto Jian Wushuang. Is it coming? Jian Wushuang was directly below the thunderclouds. His face was cold, and his body was slightly trembling, but he still retained a trace of unyielding in his heart. At the same time, a dark gray jade slip appeared in Jian Wushuang's hand. The dark gray jade slip was his ultimate life-saving move. But he did not want to pass it now. His eyes looked through the void in front of him. Lung Rushuang was still in a deep sleep, and the shadowy figure was standing next to her. If Jian Wushuang wanted to go up and snatch Lung Rushuang, he had to pass through this shadowy figure. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang's heart was trembling crazily. He was roaring crazily, and there was endless unwillingness in his heart. However, no matter how unwilling he was, he had to be clear about the situation in front of him. Boom! With a violent boom, the destructive power in the void above and deep in the thunderclouds finally exploded. Countless dark purple thunderbolts that could easily shatter the void and kill the immortal saint gathered together at an astonishing speed. Under the gathering of these thunderbolts, a huge face was formed in the blink of an eye. That's right, it was a human face. This human face was icy. It slowly descended from the void above. The further down it went, the more the destructive power multiplied. In the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, countless cultivators sensed the power contained within this human face. Everyone was stunned. Even the shadowy figure, who was a dignified master of laws, felt a slight tremble in her heart when she saw this human face that was completely formed from thunderbolts. The will of heaven. This is the power of the will of heaven. Even in the third heaven, where the will of heaven is weak, the power of the will of heaven is still strong enough to kill rule masters. If it reaches the third heaven, the power of the will of heaven is said to be able to suppress even Saint Realm Masters. No one can resist such power. The hazy figure shook her head secretly, but she looked at Jian Wushuang with a hint of pity. In her opinion, Jian Wushuang was dead for sure if the will of heaven attacked him personally. Then, he would not have any room to struggle. It was true. When the human face swooped down and kept approaching Jian Wushuang, the pressure Jian Wushuang felt multiplied. It made him despair. He could not move his hand, which was holding the jade slip. He could not crush the jade slip directly. But at this time, crash, the surrounding void suddenly broke. Without any warning, a huge black hole directly appeared. And in this space black hole, a huge hand directly extended out. This huge hand contained the power to rip the sky. As soon as it appeared, it struck the human face like lightning, and it happened to hit the face of the human face. With a crisp sound, the human face directly collapsed and turned into a sky full of dark purple thunderbolts, which swept wildly in all directions. Each of these dark purple thunderbolts had the power to destroy the world. As they swept through the surrounding void, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion immediately suffered. The earth rumbled crazily, and the thunderbolts shattered countless mountain buildings. Some unlucky people were even struck by the dark purple thunderbolts and died on the spot. Jian Wushuang, run! A deep voice suddenly sounded in Jian Wushuang's mind. This voice made Jian Wushuang's body and mind tremble. He stared at Lung Rushuang in front of him, and his fingertips had already pierced into his flesh. If Shuang Er loses hair or suffers any injustice, I will destroy your whole family from now on. Jian Wushuang's cold voice resounded across the entire sky. After his voice fell, Jian Wushuang finally crushed the dark gray jade slip in his hand. The dark gray jade slip contained a skill, which was teleportation. As the jade slip was crushed, a wave of space-time power was activated, and Jian Wushuang's figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Jian Wushuang had already left. The giant hand that stretched out from the void was retracted, and the void was restored without leaving a trace. Only the top of the sky was left. Countless deep purple thunderbolts were still dancing crazily, and the destructive power was getting stronger and more violent. Terrifying booms were heard continuously. It was obvious that the power of the will of heaven was angry. Someone saved the divine master under the power of the will of heaven? The shadowy figure still existed in this world. She had seen everything that had just happened, and now she was shocked. The power of the will of heaven just now, even if her original body came, would be destroyed on the spot. However, someone who was hundreds of millions of miles away used a great method to destroy the destructive power of the will of heaven and save Jian Wushuang. How terrifying was the person who had just saved Jian Wushuang? What happened to the power of the will of heaven? The hazy figure raised her head again and looked over in surprise. She could see that the power of the will of heaven was obviously still in a rage. However, in her opinion, since Jian Wushuang had been rescued, the power of the will of heaven should have dissipated very soon. However, looking at the traces now, the power of the will of heaven did not have any intention of dissipating. And at this moment, in the vast thunder sea above, a space passage slowly appeared. That's right, it was a spatial tunnel. There was not the slightest spatial factor in the void previously. However, a tunnel had been forcefully opened up by someone. A human figure slowly appeared at the end of the spatial tunnel. The human figure slowly walked out of the spatial tunnel and quickly appeared in everyone's sight. This was a bald man wearing a white robe. He was smiling. This bald man was barefoot and his entire body was bathed in sunlight. White light flickered on his body, giving off a gentle feeling of a cool breeze. He stood there in the air and did not speak. However, everyone in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion seemed to have completely calmed down. Everyone became calm and peaceful. At the same time, everyone's gaze, including that of the blurry figure, could not help but look at the white-robed bald man. The blurry figure's eyes were already wide open. Sage Lord! The Sage Realm Master has personally arrived. Even this hazy figure, a dignified master of laws, was utterly stunned at this moment. Previously, it was the will of the heavenly Tao that had descended. Still, now, a dignified sage realm master, the strongest existence in the absolute beginning divine realm, had personally arrived. That's not right. No matter what, this place is outside the third heaven. In the endless territories, the power of the will of the heavenly Tao isn't too oppressive here. Although a sage realm master is formidable, he is far away in the third heaven and is still at the core. He can't rush here so easily. Even if he has the power of the will of the heavenly Tao to help him, he wouldn't be able to do so. Then he must be a consciousness clone. The shadowy figure thought to herself. She was right. The white-robed bald man was indeed a consciousness clone, but it was much stronger than the one she had condensed as a rule master. After the white-robed bald man walked out of the tunnel, he looked down with a gentle gaze. I'm late. Did he escape again? The white-robed bald man had already received the message from the power of the will of heaven. He knew that Jian Wushuang had been rescued. Although he was a little angry, he was still smiling on the surface, giving off the feeling of a spring breeze. At the same time, the white-robed bald man also noticed the hazy figure, and his eyes had already penetrated through it. The blurry figure's heart skipped a beat, but he immediately bowed and greeted, Grand Supreme Emotion Valleys, Zhu Xian greets you, sir. Why would someone from Grand Supreme Emotion Valley appear here? The white-robed bald man asked. It's like this. A disciple of my Grand Supreme Emotion Valley has met with some trouble here, and I've come specially to pick her up, the blurry figure said. The disciple you're talking about is that woman? The white-robed bald man had already turned to look at Lung Rushuang. Yes. The blurry figure did not dare to lie. This woman is not ordinary. If I'm not wrong, the little fellow who escaped earlier, who the heavenly Tao does not tolerate, must be related to her. The white-robed bald man's eyes flickered with a strange light. The blurry figure was startled. Although she could sense that the white-robed bald man's tone was somewhat unfriendly, he immediately said, Sir, this girl is a disciple of my Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley, and is especially important to my Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley. But, most importantly, my Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley's master thinks highly of her and has even intended to accept her as a disciple. Old Valley Master? That old woman. The white-robed bald man did not show any signs of anger on the surface, but his heart sank. The Supreme Emotion Valley was indeed a large force in the absolute beginning divine realm. It could even be compared to the Eight Directions heavenly sect. If that were all, he would not take it to heart. However, the Supreme Emotion Valley's master had to make him pay attention to her. Forget it. Since he is the successor of that old woman, I will naturally not make things difficult for him. The white-robed bald man waved his hand. Thank you, my lord. The hazy figure secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, the white-robed bald man had already turned around, and a terrifying aura was spreading out from his body. The power of the will of the heavenly Tao above the void had yet to dissipate. At this moment, the white-robed bald man seemed to have wholly combined with the power of the will of the heavenly Tao. With the help of the power of the will of the heavenly Tao, the white-robed bald man began to set up some unique arrays. What is he planning? The hazy figure was shocked when he saw this, but he soon understood. He is setting up a spatial tunnel, and with the help of the will of the heavenly Tao, could it be that he is planning to open up a spatial tunnel leading to the third heaven, allowing his true body to descend from the core of the third heaven personally? The hazy figure was amazed at it. In the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, many experts were also looking at the scene at the top of the void in shock, but no one dared to stop him. This was a boundless void that was a certain distance away from the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, the Dragon Phoenix Sacred City, and even the Golden Crow 9 realms. This void has initially been empty, but suddenly, a figure appeared without any warning. This figure was naturally Jian Wushuang. He had once obtained a unique jade slip in the secret realm left behind by the rule master of the Pill Sun Sacred World. The jade slip contained teleportation. Teleportation was one of the skills that could only be mastered after one had reached an extremely high level of understanding of the space-time rules. Among the immortal saints, Anyone who could control teleportation was the best immortal saint. This time, he directly used the jade slip and teleported into the void. Jian Wushuang did not know how far he had teleported and where he would be teleported to. However, in the situation just now, he had no choice but to use teleportation to escape. After appearing in the void, Jian Wushuang's aura immediately became weak. Not only was he weak, but he was also very weak. The heaven-cleaving skill was the most powerful divine power created by his master Xianxia. It was extremely powerful. Although he could not exert 1/10 of its power, it was still too much of a burden for him to use it. Moreover, he had just used it twice. His divine power and mind had been extensively damaged after using it twice. He had indeed fallen into a weakened state. This was the first time he had encountered such a weakness since his reincarnation. However, Jian Wushuang could not care less at this moment. His expression was cold and his mind was full of thoughts. I unscrupulously displayed the power of the life level and performed the heaven-cleaving skill twice in a row. The power of the will of heaven has already arrived. The power of the will of heaven has completely locked onto my position. Although Taoist Xianxia helped me out of my predicament in time and allowed me to teleport away, now that my position has been exposed, the power of the will of heaven, as well as the mortal enemies of the seven-star mysterious sect in the core of the divine beginning world, the three masters of the saint realm will immediately rush over. Even if their original bodies won't come in person, their consciousness doppelgangers will definitely come. When that time comes, they will definitely try to find my whereabouts. They will definitely turn the 9 realms of the Golden Crow and even the surrounding territories upside down. I definitely can't go back to the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Not only that, all the people who are close to me in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow must be moved immediately. Jian Wushuang was very clear about the danger he was facing. Not only would he face great danger, but he would also implicate the people around him. For example, his parents in this life. His elder sister, second brother, and the people closest to him would be implicated. Jian Wushuang had to ask them to leave as soon as possible. But now he did not know where he was. So there was only one way to take Shui Yunfeng and the others away. Jian Wushuang took out a message token. It was the first time he had taken it out since he got it. Miss Xiao'er, there's something I need your help with. Jian Wushuang had already sent the message. In the Witch Desert region, under the command of the Beiming Star Field in the Pil Sun Sacred World. It was the 12th month, and the snow covered the entire burning moon city with a layer of silver clothing. In the courtyard in the center of the city lord's mansion, Zhui Yunfeng and Luo Xinqin stood together. Darling, do you remember when I was pregnant with Xianxia? Luo Xinqin asked. Of course I remember. Zhui Yunfeng smiled. Xianxia is a child with extraordinary talent. He stayed in your arms for 9 years, 9 months, and 9 days, and it snowed in Burning Moon City for 9 years, 9 months, and 9 days. Strangely, the snow stopped on the day Xianxia was born, and the sky cleared in an instant. I wonder how this child is doing outside now? Luo Xinqin asked. I don't know, but with his talent and speed of improvement, his strength is probably many times stronger than before. He might have already reached the peak of the reverent God realm. His achievements are not what we can imagine, Zhui Yunfeng said with a smile. Yes. Luo Xinqin sighed softly. But at this moment, Wang, a figure appeared in the sky above the burning Moon City's city lord's mansion without warning. This figure wore a simple gray robe and a gray mask. As soon as he appeared, a majestic aura immediately enveloped him. Shui Yunfeng, Luo Xinqin. A cold voice sounded both inside and outside the city lord's mansion. The entire city lord's residence instantly erupted into a clamor. The many cultivators in the residence looked up at the gray-robed, masked figure with endless terror. Even the 2 God-fiend realm experts sent by the Great Tragedy sect to secretly protect Zhui Yunfeng and his wife were highly shocked at this moment. Greetings, my lord. May I know why my lord has come to my burning moon city? Zhui Yunfeng immediately stood up and said respectfully. You are Zhui Yunfeng? Is that your wife? Luo Xinqin? Beside you? The gray-robed, masked figure asked. Yes. Zhuo Yunfeng nodded subconsciously. If that's the case, then there's no mistake. Come with me. The gray-robed masked figure waved his hand, and immediately, Zhuo Yunfeng and Luo Xinqin lost the ability to resist. Instead, they were directly driven by the gray-robed masked figure to rush towards the surrounding void. Soon, they disappeared from the world. It was not until the three of them left that the governor's mansion exploded. The two divine devil realm experts who were secretly protecting Zhuo Yunfeng and his wife were shocked. When Jian Wushuang left, he had reached an agreement with the Great Tragedy sect. Before Jian Wushuang returned, the Great Tragedy sect would do their best to ensure the safety of his parents. But now, Jian Wushuang's parents were in the governor's mansion of Burning Moon City. Had they been taken away? If Jian Wushuang did not see his parents when he came back, would he not be furious? Quick! Report this to the sect master. The two divine demon realm experts of the Great Tragedy sect immediately sent a message. In a remote void in the Witch Desert region, the gray-robed masked figure suddenly stopped. Zhuo Yunfeng and Luo Xinqin were floating beside him. Zhuo Yunfeng and Luo Xinqin were also a little frightened. My lord, why did you bring us here? Zhuo Yunfeng could not help asking. Do you too have a son named Jian Yi? The gray-robed masked man looked over. Jian Yi? No, I only have two sons. One is Zhuo Peng, and the other is Jian Wushuang. There is no one named Jian Yi, Zhuo Yunfeng said. Jian Wushuang. The gray-robed masked man's expression changed. He flipped his hand and took out a portrait. Is it the person in the portrait? Zhuo Yunfeng and Luo Xinqin glanced at the person in the portrait. They immediately recognized that it was Jian Wushuang. Yes, it's him. The person in the portrait is my Shuang heir, Zhuo Yunfeng said. That's right. You two wait here, the gray-robed masked man said coldly, but he did not explain much. Not long after. They're here. The gray-robed masked man suddenly raised his head. He saw two figures rushing over from the void not far away. One of the two people was also wearing a simple gray robe and a mask. As for the other person, it was Zhuo Bing heir. Zhuo Yunfeng and Luo Xinqin were both shocked when they saw Zhuo Bing. Father, mother, you're here too? Zhuo Bing was also extremely surprised. She was clearly still cultivating in the ancient star hall just now. But a gray-robed masked man directly barged in and brought her here with effective means. The experts in her ancient star hall, including the strongest divine master, did not even have the slightest chance to struggle. Not long after Zhuo Bing arrived, Zhuo Peng also arrived. He was also brought here by a gray-robed masked man. Since then, the four people closest to Jian Wushuang had all gathered. Everyone is here. Let's hurry up and leave this world. The three gray-robed masked men reached an agreement. Then they immediately left with Zhuo Yunfeng, Zhuo Bing, and Zhuo Peng. Within the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, the white-robed bald man and the will of the heavenly Tao worked together. In merely 2 hours, an enormous teleportation channel had already appeared in the sky. This spatial channel was enormous and boundless. After it was constructed entirely, only then did the will of the heavenly Tao completely dissipate. Soon after, numerous figures began to stride over from the other end of the spatial channel. A large number of figures appeared in the air the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. There were over 100 of them. However, terrifying was that the aura of each and every one of these people was exceptionally tyrannical. Any one of them was sufficient to cause the experts and disciples of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion to tremble in fear. Just like the immortal saints of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, at this moment, all of them lowered their heads in fear. These people were all experts at the level of the immortal saints. In addition, there were 10 figures at the very front of the crowd. Their auras were towering and far surpassed the immortal saints. Those 10 people were actually the 10 supreme masters of laws. However, regardless of whether it was the immortal saints or the 10 masters of laws, they were all unable to conceal the existence of the white-robed bald man at the very front of the crowd. What the white-robed bald man had arrived at this moment was not his consciousness but his true body. Go find him! Even if we have to turn this territory and the surrounding territories upside down, We must find that brat's existence. Not only him but also his family members in this life. Everyone related to him must be arrested and interrogated. We must find him at all costs. Although the white-robed bald man was still gentle, his voice was as cold as ice. The 10 rule masters and hundreds of immortal saints behind him all nodded solemnly and followed the many experts to search at the fastest speed possible. In the void below, the consciousness clone of the supreme emotion forgetting Valley's rule master watched this scene with great astonishment. As expected, the original body of the rule master has arrived, and he brought a total of 10 rule masters and hundreds of powerful Saint Realm experts. That kid is too powerful. The shadowy figure was secretly shocked. Yet, at the same time, the words that Jian Wushuang said when he left echoed in her mind. If Shuang Heir loses a hair or suffers any grievance, I'll wipe out your entire clan from now on. At first, the shadowy figure did not take these words to heart. But now, she did not dare to underestimate them. I hope this Saint Stage Master can find and kill that kid. Otherwise, I'm afraid my Supreme Emotion Valley will not be able to rest in peace in the future. The shadowy figure sighed lightly, and her consciousness clone had already begun to dissipate slowly. As for Lung Rushuang, when the white-robed bald man set up the formation, she had already instructed the cold and arrogant woman to bring Lung Rushuang back to Supreme Emotion Valley. She did not want to get involved in what happened next, nor did she dare to get involved. The news of the arrival of the Third Firmament experts, the core of the absolute beginning divine realm, had created a storm that swept through the entire 9 realms of the Golden Crow. At first, the experts of the 9 realms of the Golden Crow were baffled. They even had some doubts. However, when the powerful immortal saints and even the legendary masters of laws started to roam the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, the experts of the 9 realms of the Golden Crow immediately believed them. Especially when they knew that these experts were all coming for Jian Yi, they were all shocked. After all, Jian Yi was only a divine master. A mere divine master had such great power that he had sent out more than 100 immortal saints and 10 rule masters from the third heaven to hunt him down. There was even news from the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion that Jian Yi had violated the Heavenly Tao and was not tolerated by the Heavenly Tao. In the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, the power of the Heavenly Tao had personally descended to kill Jian Wushuang, but he was saved at the last moment. This news also shocked countless people. In short, the name of Jian Yi once again resounded throughout the Golden Crow 9 realms. Crimson Rock Castle in the Pill Sun Sacred World. Dozens of immortal saints and several rule masters appeared in Crimson Rock Castle at the same time. The experts in Crimson Rock Castle felt the terrifying auras and were so scared that their legs went numb. Even the fort master of Crimson Rock Castle, Sewer, who had already broken through to the immortal saint level, was stunned. Oh my God! She was an immortal saint after all. Although she had just broken through, her strength was still there. However, among the dozens of people in front of her, any one of them, even if it was just a vague aura, made her feel like she could not resist it. This was especially so for those at the very front. The aura of any one of them was enough to cause her to feel despair. Are you the realm lord of this world? At the very front of these experts, the white-robed bald man suddenly turned to look at Sewer. His eyes flickered with a strange light. Before Sewer could react, her gaze had already turned hollow. In the blink of an eye, Sewer had been entirely controlled by the bewitching spirit. After that, she could no longer resist. Tell me everything you know about Jian Yi, the white-robed bald man ordered. Yes. Sewer nodded dully and then told him everything she knew in detail. She told him everything, including Jian Wushuang's origin and the connection between him and Crimson Rock Castle. Sewer also mentioned the Beiming Starfield and the Witch Desert region where Jian Wushuang's move was born. Witch Desert region? After learning that the Witch Desert region was where Jian Wushuang was born and that he had relatives in this life, the white-robed bald man's eyes lit up, and he immediately left. In less than 6 hours, the white-robed bald man and the others had arrived in the Witch Desert region. However, when they arrived, they knew that Jian Wushuang's relatives had been taken away by 3 mysterious experts not long ago, and they were nowhere to be found. In other words, Jian Wushuang's relatives were all gone. All three of them are wearing simple gray robes and gray masks. They are members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. The white-robed bald man's heart sank. Bastards! The white-robed bald man was a little angry, but he was helpless. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was the most mysterious and terrifying in the absolute beginning divine realm. Their strength and methods were unfathomable. Moreover, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was not like the holy region that he controlled. His sacred region had an endless amount of resources within the third sky. Therefore, it could be said that it could control everything. However, outside the third heaven, his subordinates did not have much power. Just like in the Golden Crow 9 realms, he did not have the slightest bit of power involved. Therefore, if he wanted to mobilize experts, he could only temporarily open a space passage under the coordination of the will of the heavenly Tao and let the experts in the third heaven descend. However, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was different. No matter which territory in the absolute beginning divine realm, no matter which corner, as long as the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance wanted to, they could mobilize several experts above the Immortal Saint realm as soon as possible. This was what the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was good at. Its strength was spread across every corner of the divine beginning world. Although it was scattered and not completely concentrated, it was still extremely terrifying. Since that kid can ask the experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to transfer his family members, with the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's methods in the endless territories, they can casually transfer his family members to some hidden territories. Even I can't find out, and neither can he. The white-robed bald man's face had become a little ugly. If Jian Wushuang was on his own, he would not care if he was on the run with his own strength. As long as he knew Jian Wushuang's approximate location, he could join forces with the power of the will of heaven. He would try to find Jian Wushuang through all kinds of means. But if Jian Wushuang used the power of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, or if he joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, he would have nowhere to go. In the void far away from the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Jian Wushuang, as you instructed, I asked the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to move your loved ones as quickly as possible. Now, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance has sent news that your loved ones have gone to a very distant territory. I've also sent people to bring them here. I can guarantee that they won't be in danger. On the other end of the transmission token, a cold but heart-stirring voice was heard. Thank you, Miss Shower, Jian Wushuang said gratefully. You don't have to thank me. Just remember my favor. You and I are allies. In order to help you, I have paid a lot of money to get the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to act as quickly as possible so that you can move your relatives in time. But in the future, the things I want you to do for me will be much more difficult than this, Shower said. As long as I have enough strength, I will do my best, Jian Wushuang said. After breaking off the communication with Shower, Jian Wushuang was relieved to know that Shui Yunfeng and the others had been safely transferred. At the same time, he was secretly glad. He was glad that he had made an ally in the Witch Desert region. Shower had also experienced reincarnation. Her origin was a mystery and her background was huge. The key was that she was a friend and not an enemy of the 7-star mysterious sect. That was why Jian Wushuang agreed to form an alliance with her. Although the alliance was formed, neither side had encountered any difficulties before, so there was no communication. But this time, Jian Wushuang had to ask for help from this ally, and this Miss Shower did not disappoint him. Although Shower could not move his close relatives in a short period of time, she had asked the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. In this way, he could move his family members to a safe place in time. Father and mother have been moved. I have also sent a message to Shower to tell her to be careful. As long as those who are close to me are able to hide, for the time being, they should be fine. Jian Wushuang sighed lightly. This matter happened so suddenly that he had not been fully prepared. Therefore, it was somewhat urgent, but fortunately, there were no major changes. Now that everyone close to him in the 9 realms had been transferred and hidden, he was much more relieved. Next, he would certainly be ready to leave. But before he left, whoosh! Jian Wushuang suddenly waved his hand, and a figure appeared in the void in front of him. This figure was Lung Rushuang's master, Elder Qin. Jian, are you finally willing to let me out? Elder Qin stared at Jian Wushuang with a cold face. Jian Wushuang smiled. In the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, He had been fighting with people and even fighting against the heavenly Tao because of the urgent situation. At that time, he had put all his attention on his opponent. He had forgotten that Elder Qin had been suppressed in his Blood Mountain sword. It was not until he had completely left the battlefield and arrived in the void that Jian Wushuang remembered. Elder Qin, I'm sorry to have made you suffer, Jian Wushuang said apologetically. Humph! Elder Qin snorted, but she looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange look. Although she had been suppressed in the Blood Mountain sword, she had clearly seen the scene outside. She had witnessed Jian Wushuang's battle strength at the true saint level. Even the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's biggest reliance, Saint Hong, could not stop him. This was just a small matter. Later, when facing 9 experts at the true saint level from the Supreme Emotion Valley, their divine bodies collapsed and their souls were completely destroyed under the attacks of the 9 true saints. However, they did not die. In the end, they even used shocking techniques. They swept the 9 true saints with one sword and killed 8 of them on the spot. The terrifying strength and techniques completely frightened her. In the end, the consciousness avatar of the Rule Master appeared, and the power of the will of the heavenly Tao descended to perform the power of destruction. These were completely beyond what she could bear. Until now, Elder Qin still had not completely reacted, and her mind was still in a daze. She was very curious about what kind of secret Jian Wushuang had that caused the power of the will of heaven to descend. However, she did not intend to ask about it, and Jian Wushuang could not tell her. Elder Qin, there is one small thing I want to ask you, Jian Wushuang suddenly said. Speak. Elder Qin's voice was still cold. You are Shuang Er, the master of Little Phoenix. You must know her background, right? Jian Wushuang asked. He was indeed curious about Lung Rushuang's background in this life. Could not be helped. Lung Rushuang's talent in this life was too high. Moreover, Lung Rushuang could not recognize him in this life. This made Jian Wushuang wonder if something had happened to her during the reincarnation process. Lung Er's background. Elder Qin frowned slightly. He said, I don't know her background either. When I first met her, she was just a baby. She was just born not long ago in the Dragon Phoenix Sacred City. I happened to pass by a remote territory and found a large-scale heaven and earth phenomenon in that territory. I looked for the phenomenon and found her when she was a baby. At that time, there was no one around her. She just floated quietly in the void without crying. I saw that she was extraordinary, so I sent her back to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and let her grow up there. The phenomenon of heaven and earth? Jian Wushuang was a little surprised. If what Elder Qin said was true, then the Lung Rushuang in this life seemed to be born from heaven and earth. Yes, just like those unique special life forms in the divine beginning world, they were born naturally from heaven and earth. However, most of those special life forms had been polished and evolved over a long period of time before they gradually gained some intelligence and finally became alive. But Lung Rushuang, was she reincarnated? In addition, the special life forms in the absolute beginning divine world had extremely strong bloodlines and physiques. However, apart from her high comprehension ability and the fact that it was as easy as eating and drinking, Lung Rushuang did not have anything special about her bloodline. Forget it. Since Shuang Er has already gone to the Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley, I won't be able to see her for a while. I'll wait until I become stronger. Then I'll slowly find the answer. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. Elder Qin, I'll see you again. After saying this, Jian Wushuang turned around and left. Moreover, the direction he went in was clearly the opposite of the 9 worlds of the Golden Crow. The primordial divine realm was vast and boundless. Not to mention the 3 heavens in the center, the endless territories beyond the 3 heavens were countless, and the territories they occupied were beyond imagination. After Jian Wushuang left the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, he used the space passage to pass through one territory after another. Thus, he passed through nearly 100 times on the way. It must be known that the cost of traveling from one territory to another territory was not small. On the contrary, the cost of traveling from one territory to another territory, which was separated by several or even more than 10 territories, was even greater. After traveling nearly 100 times. The cost that Jian Wushuang had to pay was no less than hundreds of thousands of saint elixirs. It was comparable to the entire wealth of an ordinary immortal saint. Jian Wushuang had teleported almost 100 times so that he could be further away from the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, and the 3 experts of the Saint Realm could not find him. As a result, Jian Wushuang did not know which territory he was in and how far from the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Let's ask someone first. Jian Wushuang smiled and rushed forward. In the vast sky, dark clouds covered the earth. Lightning snakes flickered in the dark clouds from time to time as if dragons were rolling in them. This was a barren plain where a battle was going on. This battle was a massacre. A group of bandits suddenly targeted a team of experts with more than 10 people. More than 100 experts surrounded and killed them crazily. Among the group of over 10 experts, the strongest ones were only 2 peak divine masters. But, faced with the encirclement of over 100 experts, they were quickly defeated. Those bandits were also crazily chasing after these 2 people. Damn it! This isn't a place where bandits run rampant. So how did this group of bandits come here? A middle-aged man who wore a triangular helmet and was as strong as an ox roared as he fled. What bandits? This is a trap deliberately set up by someone to deal with us. If nothing goes wrong, it should be someone from our clan. If someone didn't inform us, how would these people know our whereabouts? The purple-haired older man shouted in a deep voice. Clan members, could it be? The strong middle-aged man was shocked. Humph! Other than that good brother of yours, who else would use that great formation to deal with us? The violet-haired older man shouted. The muscular middle-aged man's expression was somewhat unsightly. Let's flee. Let's see if we can escape with our luck. The violet-haired older man sighed softly. Behind him, over 100 experts were chasing closely, each of them brimming with killing intent. But right at this moment, Wang! A figure suddenly appeared in the air. The moment this figure appeared, a terrifying pressure came hurling down. The robust middle-aged man and the purple-haired older man immediately squatted in the air. The hundreds of experts chasing behind them also stopped. Everyone raised their heads in shock, looking at the young figure like a god in the air. This pressure is too strong. It's much stronger than Father was when he was alive. It's countless times stronger. Father was a high-level great divine master when he was alive, but compared to this person, he's like an ant. This person is very likely an immortal saint-level super expert. But, even if he's not, he's still the legendary unrivaled great divine master. The robust middle-aged man was shocked. This is our chance. The purple-haired elder was pleasantly surprised. He immediately bowed and said, Greetings, sir. What can I do for you? I want to ask you something. I hope you can answer me. Jian Wushuang looked down with a cold expression. Please ask, sir. The purple-haired elder was very respectful. Which realm is this? Jian Wushuang asked. Sir, this is the Inkstone realm, the purple-haired elder said. But, at the same time, he immediately understood that the person in front of him should be an expert who had just arrived from the outside world. Inkstone realm, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. When he was free in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, he also saw the Starfield's map in the surrounding territories. The map was quite vast, but it did not mention the Inkstone realm. Obviously, his current location was very far away from the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Let me ask you again, who are the realm masters of your Inkstone realm? Jian Wushuang asked again. My lord, there are 4 realm masters in the Inkstone realm, and each of them is a powerful immortal saint. I wonder who you are asking about, the purple-haired elder asked. 4 realm masters? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Usually, there was only 1 realm master in a realm, but there were 4 in the Inkstone realm. Jian Wushuang knew that the 4 realm masters would fight for their own interests. Which of the 4 realm masters is the closest to here? Jian Wushuang asked. I know. It's the Evergreen Realm Master. He lives in Evergreen Island, which is less than 10 days away, the purple-haired elder said. Give me the map of the star field. Jian Wushuang stretched out his hand. The purple-haired elder did not hesitate and immediately handed the most comprehensive map of the star field to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang took it and immediately knew the location of the Evergreen Realm Master. He nodded and then looked at the hundreds of experts who had been chasing after the purple-haired elder and the middle-aged man. This deal ends here. You can leave. The hundreds of experts who were chasing after the purple-haired elder and the burly middle-aged man were extremely unwilling. However, after looking at Jian Wushuang, the leader of the hundreds of experts chose to endure. Let's go! The hundreds of experts immediately turned and left. Jian Wushuang's figure also disappeared. As for the purple-haired elder and the strong middle-aged man, they were overjoyed. Without any hesitation, they immediately set off and fled as fast as they could. Evergreen Island, the residence of the Evergreen Realm Lord. The Inkstone Realm was extremely vast, 3 to 4 times larger than an ordinary realm. Naturally, more experts were born. However, after a round of fighting, these experts gradually turned into 4 forces. Each of the 4 forces had a ruler, which was the 4 realm masters of the Inkstone Realm. Among the 4 realm masters, Evergreen Realm Master was just an ordinary one. He was not strong, only at the level of an immortal saint. He was far from being a true saint. Jian Wushuang had already arrived at Evergreen Island. Evergreen Island was vast and majestic, with countless towering palaces and courtyards. Many cultivators gathered in front of the main gate of the island. Most of them had reached the Great Divine Master level and were waiting there. They were here to see the Evergreen Realm Lord. Please inform him that Jian Yuan is here to pay a visit, Jian Wushuang said politely. Jian Yuan. The guard guarding the gate looked Jian Wushuang up and down. Jian Wushuang smiled and slightly revealed his divine power aura. His realm had reached the advanced Great Divine Master level. Under the cover of black rock, his divine power aura had reached the limit of a divine master, but he could not reach the immortal saint level. When Xianxia Daoist gave him the black rock, he said that the black rock could only cover the aura of immortal saint and below. Jian Wushuang gave the name Jian Yuan at the last minute. Even though the Inkstone realm was far away from the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, Jian Wushuang still did not dare to be careless. He did not dare to use his real name or even the 2 aliases he used in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Jianyi and Su Han, he did not dare to use them. Therefore, he could only choose another one. The guard also sensed Jian Wushuang's aura and was immediately startled. Wait a moment. I'll immediately report it. The guard immediately reported this matter to the butler, who was usually in charge of Evergreen Island. But, unfortunately, he was also a peak Great Divine Master. Jian Yuan? I've never heard of this name. I don't know where it came from. The Realm Lord is busy these days. He doesn't have time to see this and that. Go and tell him to wait outside for a few decades. The butler ordered. The guard immediately returned and conveyed the butler's message. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang could not help smiling bitterly. But then his body shook. Boom! A terrifying divine power directly covered the entire Evergreen Island. This divine power was earth-shaking and suppressed everything. In an instant, countless cultivators in Evergreen Island began to tremble. At the island's main entrance, the experts who were waiting quietly looked at Jian Wushuang in horror. The guard and the housekeeper who had walked out of the island were also terrified. Jian Wushuang could not be bothered with them. He just calmly looked at the place not far away. There an aura slowly rose. May I know which friend has come to my Evergreen Island? A gentle voice slowly spread. A middle-aged man in a green robe with stubble slowly appeared in the void above. Seeing this middle-aged man in a green robe, many experts in Evergreen Island immediately showed respect. This middle-aged man in a green robe was the Realm Lord of Evergreen Island. He was also one of the 4 Realm Lords of the Inkstone Realm, the Evergreen Realm Lord. Jian Yuan greets the Evergreen Realm Lord. Jian Wushuang said politely. Yes, a divine master? The Evergreen Realm Lord looked at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. He had sensed the divine power, which was why he had shown himself. But he had never expected that it was only a divine master who was emitting the divine power. Although Jian Wushuang was only a divine master, his casual standing gave the Evergreen Realm Lord great pressure. As a result, the Evergreen Realm Lord did not dare to underestimate him. This divine master is not simple. This was the first thought that came to the Evergreen Realm Lord's mind. My friend, let's have a chat on the island. The Evergreen Realm Lord invited him. Thank you. Jian Wushuang thanked him and immediately followed the Evergreen Realm Lord to the center of the island. In the center of a magnificent palace, the Evergreen Realm Lord ordered some delicacies and wine for Jian Wushuang to enjoy. You are not from the Inkstone Realm, are you? The Evergreen Realm Lord asked casually. Have you noticed, Realm Lord? Jian Wushuang smiled. Of course. I know many powerful divine masters in the Inkstone Realm. Many of them have been accepted by me. You are so powerful, but I have never heard of you. So, naturally, you are not from the Inkstone Realm, the Evergreen Realm Lord said with a smile. Indeed, I'm from another realm. As for why I came to the Inkstone Realm today, I have something to ask you, Evergreen Realm Lord, Jian Wushuang said. You can tell me, my young friend. The Evergreen Realm Lord looked at him. You've been famous for so many years and are very knowledgeable. Have you ever heard of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Jian Wushuang asked. Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? The Evergreen Realm Lord was stunned, but his expression immediately turned solemn. I have naturally heard of the famous Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the divine beginning world. I even yearn for it. However, it's not easy to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. If that's the case, do you know where the nest of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is located in the nearby territories, Your Excellency? Jian Wushuang asked. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was recognized as the #1 alliance in the absolute beginning divine world. Its power was spread over every territory and every corner of the absolute beginning divine world. To achieve this, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance needed to have a spatial channel to connect the corners of each territory and had to have secret strongholds in those territories. These strongholds were known as nests in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. For example, there was a secret nest around the territory of the Golden Crow 9 Realms. All the members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the Golden Crow 9 Realms and the surrounding territories would go to that secret nest if they wanted to take on missions. Of course, this was also what Bone Emperor told him. He had a Heaven-Cleaving token, and he was powerful enough. So he wanted to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Although originally, he wanted to wait for Lang Rushuang's matter to come to an end before he went to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's nest in the surrounding territories of the Golden Crow 9 Realms. After passing the Heaven-Cleaving token to participate in the assessment of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, he officially became a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. However, he had to flee from the territory of the 9 Realms of the Golden Crow and come to the Inkstone Realm, which was an unknown distance away from the 9 Realms of the Golden Crow. Here, Jian Wushuang did not know where the secret nest of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was, so he could only invite people to inquire about it. That was the main reason why he came to look for the Evergreen Realm Master. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's lair. The Evergreen Realm Lord frowned slightly. My young friend, as far as I know, there is no Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's lair in the Inkstone Realm. However, I have vaguely heard that there is one in the territory near the Inkstone Realm. However, I don't know the exact location of the lair. After all, I have never really dealt with the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. You don't know? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes slightly, but he was not surprised. However, although I don't know the location of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's secret nest, someone in my Inkstone Realm does. The Evergreen Realm Lord suddenly changed the topic. Who is it? Jian Wushuang immediately looked at the Evergreen Realm Lord. Xuedong King. The Evergreen Realm Lord smiled. Xuedong King used to be an invincible divine master in the Inkstone Realm. When he was a divine master, his comprehension of rules and Tao had already reached the level of an immortal saint. He even created an absolute art at the level of a saint. Later on, he paid a price to obtain a Heaven-Cleaving token and passed the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's test to become a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Jian Wushuang's eyes immediately lit up. Since Xuedong King was a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, he must know the location of the secret lair of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance around the Inkstone Realm. Where is Xuedong King now? Jian Wushuang asked. Don't worry, my friend, the Evergreen Realm Lord said indifferently. Xuedong King is in the Inkstone Realm. It's not difficult for you to find him. Just ask a slightly stronger Great Divine Master and you'll know. However, Shuedong King has a very strange temper. If you want him to tell you the location of the secret lair of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, you'll have to go through a lot of trouble. Oh! Jian Wushuang's expression changed. He has a weird temper. How weird is that? It's simple. He likes to fight. He's a battle maniac. He only respects experts who are stronger than him or are recognized by him. It's hard for ordinary experts to meet him or to befriend him because he won't talk to you at all. Instead, he takes the initiative and is very enthusiastic when facing those who are stronger than him and can be recognized by him. My friend, if you want to see him, you have to be prepared in advance, said the Evergreen Realm Lord. Prepared? You mean, fight with him? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. Of course. You have to fight with him and get his approval before he will talk to you. In addition, he has deliberately set up a series of powerful means in his residence. These means are so powerful that no ordinary person can break in. In other words, you have to go through the means he has set up over the years before you can really see him, said the Evergreen Realm Lord. So harsh. Jian Wushuang was stunned. They had met each other not long ago. If Shuedong King did not want to meet him, he could just disappear. However, he had deliberately set up many means in his residence. No matter who it was, they had to break through all the means to meet him. Shuedong King is indeed eccentric, but it should not be difficult for me to break through his means with my strength, Jian Wushuang said. Don't be too confident, my friend. I forgot to tell you that Shuedong King has made a breakthrough to the Immortal Saint level not long ago. His battle strength is much stronger than mine, so his tricks are naturally more powerful, said the Evergreen Realm Lord. A breakthrough. Jian Wushuang was stunned, but then he shrugged helplessly and said, No matter what, I have to try. Thank you, Evergreen Realm Lord. Goodbye. Jian Wushuang stood up and left after saying his thanks. Evergreen Realm Lord looked at Jian Wushuang's departure with a strange expression. Jian Yuan is not only in the Inkstone realm but also in the surrounding territories. I've never heard of him. However, the pressure he gives me is very great. It's even greater than the pressure from the other 3 realm lords in the Inkstone realm. Where did this expert come from? Did he really come to my Inkstone realm just for the secret lair of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? The Evergreen Realm Lord pondered for a moment before shaking his head, no longer thinking about it. On top of a smooth cliff, there was a huge scarlet castle. This red castle was extremely famous in the entire Inkstone realm. After all, that Shuedong King who had already broken through to the Immortal Saint realm and could threaten the 4 realm lords lived here. Around the scarlet castle, a layer of scarlet mist surrounded the castle, flowing normally like a scarlet river. From time to time, faint blood-colored bubbles would appear. In the deepest part of the castle, 7th young master, go back. The clan leader misses you every day. Even if you still have some resentment toward what happened back then, it has been so many years. No matter what you do, you still have to care about the relationship between father and son. A white-haired old man stood below the steps. He looked eagerly at a blood-haired, blood-robed man above him. That blood-haired, blood-robed man was none other than the Shuedong King. The relationship between father and son? How laughable. Back then, he complained that my cultivation speed was slow and that I didn't live up to expectations. When he beat and scolded me countless times, I could still understand and still be able to consider the relationship between father and son. But back then, I accidentally provoked a slightly more powerful clan, and he directly tied me up and sent me to the other party's residence. When I was at the other party's disposal, did he ever consider the relationship between father and son? Back then, if it wasn't for my intelligence and the fact that I knew how to endure humiliation and burden, and that I was finally able to survive under the endless torture of that Fong clan, did he ever miss me at that time? Did he ever come to visit me? I'm afraid that at that time, I had already become an abandoned child in his hands in order to quell the fury of that Fong clan. Right? At that time, he did not care about my life or death at all. Now that I've become stronger, he misses me. Does he have to care about the relationship between father and son? What a joke! What a big joke! Shuedong King sneered, but his voice was unusually cold. Scram. Go back and tell him that I've already broken off my relationship with him. Tell him to stop bothering me in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Shui Dongqing waved his sleeve. A terrifying aura that had already reached the level of an undying saint directly pressed down on the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man's expression changed drastically, and he forcefully endured the pressure. He continued, "Seventh young master, the clan has encountered a great crisis this time. No matter what grudges you have with the clan leader, I beg you, on account of the fact that you share the same bloodline, no matter what, you must lend a hand." Lend a hand? If I don't personally exterminate them, it's already very worthy of them. Shui Dongqing snorted coldly, but he was already completely enraged in his heart. He waved his hand, and a majestic force immediately acted on the white-haired elder. The white-haired elder was severely injured. He spat out a mouthful of blood and shot backward in a sorry state. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared in front of Shui Dongqing. Although the white-haired elder was sent flying, Shui Dongqing's anger did not completely disappear in the palace. The entire palace was still under great pressure and did not calm down for a long time. At this time, Jian Wushuang arrived in front of the Scarlet Castle. Just before Jian Wushuang arrived at the Scarlet Castle, he saw the white-haired elder walk out of the castle in a sorry state. The white-haired elder's face was obviously a little ugly. The white-haired elder naturally saw Jian Wushuang. "Your Excellency, are you here to visit Shui Dongqing?" The white-haired elder looked at Jian Wushuang. "Yes." Jian Wushuang nodded. "If that's the case, I advise you to leave first and come back soon," the white-haired elder said. "Why?" Jian Wushuang asked, puzzled. "Shui Dongqing is currently in a rage. It's too risky to visit him at this time. With his way of doing things, if he doesn't like you later, he might directly kill you," the white-haired elder said. "Oh, there's such a thing?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and then smiled. "Let's try. If he wants to kill me, we have to see if he has the ability to do so." After saying that, Jian Wushuang flew directly into the Scarlet Castle. Seeing this, the white-haired elder was stunned. This man wants to break into the residence of the seventh young master? Is he courting death? Now, 99% of the experts in the Inkstone realm knew that Shui Dongqing had become an immortal saint. His battle strength was probably even stronger than that of the four realm lords. The techniques he had deployed in his castle were also very powerful. Even ordinary immortal saints would not dare to break into it, but Jian Wushuang, from the moment he rushed out, his aura was revealed. He was obviously a divine master. How dare a divine master barge into the castle where Shui Dongqing lives? The white-haired elder thought that Jian Wushuang was tired of living. But suddenly, boom! A violent boom suddenly resounded in the void. The white-haired elder's eyes immediately widened. He saw that the layer of a red river surrounding the Scarlet Castle had wrapped the entire castle tightly. But now, in the middle of the Scarlet River, a huge hole had appeared. This hole was too big, and it was obvious that it had been forcefully blasted open by someone. After this hole appeared, the entire Scarlet River collapsed. He actually broke through seventh young master's defensive measures on the castle with a single strike? The white-haired old man had a look of disbelief on his face. At the same time, in the deepest part of the Scarlet Castle, Shui Dongqing, who had not completely calmed down, also sensed the commotion outside and immediately raised his head. "My first attack was actually defeated in a frontal attack without any warning." "Was it defeated in one blow?" Shui Dongqing's eyes narrowed slightly, and he immediately rose up. Jian Wushuang grinned as he looked at the collapsed Scarlet River. "According to Evergreen Realm Lord, I don't need to say anything to Shui Dongqing. I just need to have absolute strength to convince him or make him acknowledge me. In that case, there's no need for me to be so polite." Jian Wushuang raised his head and looked ahead. He could vaguely see layers of restrictive moves. The one that had just been defeated was only the first layer of the Scarlet Castle, which was relatively weak. There were still 3 more layers of measures waiting for him. Only after passing through all the remaining 3 layers of measures could he enter the center of the Scarlet Castle and see the king. Boom! Jian Wushuang immediately burst into speed and shot forward into the void. In just a moment, Jian Wushuang encountered the second move of the Scarlet Castle. Break! Jian Wushuang still threw out a brutal punch. This punch contained a terrifying divine power as if it could break the world. It hit the first move of the restriction in front of him, which shook crazily and then collapsed in the next moment. The second move has also been broken, and it's still just a single strike. The white-haired elder was even more shocked when he saw this. However, Jian Wushuang continued to rush forward. Soon, the third move appeared in front of him. It was also a great restriction. However, the power of this restriction was obviously much stronger than the previous two. Facing this restriction, Jian Wushuang no longer fought with his bare hands. Instead, he directly took out the Blood Mountain sword. Whoosh! With a casual slash, he activated his boundless sword art, which was 33,000 feet tall. A huge sword light struck the restriction, and it was instantly cut open. Then, Jian Wushuang encountered the fourth and final restriction. Whoosh! It was still a slash, but it was extremely sharp. With a mournful sword light, it forcefully cut open a gap in the restriction. Jian Wushuang passed through the gap and entered the center of the Scarlet Castle. Outside the castle, the white-haired elder was a little stunned. A divine master easily defeated the 4 restrictions placed on the castle by the 7th young master. Who is this divine master? The white-haired elder exclaimed. In the void at the center of the Scarlet Castle, the figure of Xuedong King floated there. His eyes flashed with a glimmer as he stared at Jian Wushuang. Divine Master? Xuedong King was shocked. He had personally set up these 4 restrictions, so he knew how powerful they were. Even an ordinary immortal saint like the 4 realm lords of the Inkstone realm would not be able to break in so easily, let alone a divine master. But this divine master had actually broken in. Even I, back when I was at the divine master realm, wouldn't have such terrifying combat strength. This person. The anger on Xuedong King's face had completely disappeared. What replaced it was excitement, a thick sense of excitement. At the same time, a shocking battle intent rose up. Just as the Evergreen Realm Lord had said, this Xuedong King was a battle maniac. What he liked the most were fierce battles, especially when he fought with experts. However, the Inkstone realm was too small. The 4 known realm lords were only ordinary immortal saints. Before he had made the breakthrough, he was still in awe of them. But now, he did not care about their strength at all. Therefore, even if the 4 realm lords came personally, they could not make him excited. But now, Jian Wushuang's appearance had aroused his long-lost fighting spirit, which was exceptionally strong. Who are you? Xuedong King asked excitedly. Jian Yuan. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, after all, this is your residence, so it's not convenient for us to fight. How about we go to the nearby void? Okay. Xuedong King nodded without hesitation and immediately went to the void next door with Jian Wushuang. The void near the Scarlet Castle was above a vast sea. The endless sea water was flowing slowly, and the entire sea surface seemed very calm. But this calm was quickly broken by someone. Xuedong King, I asked you to make the first move. Jian Wushuang stood there and said grandly, haha, you're so confident. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. Xuedong King laughed loudly and immediately took out a long saber. A majestic aura rose from his body. Xuedong King suddenly rushed forward. At the same time, his body split into 2, turning into 2 identical figures. Well, this is... Jian Wushuang could not help being surprised. When he saw the 2 figures, Jian Wushuang immediately understood that they were just illusions that Xuedong King had used a special method. However, these illusions were extraordinary, and even he could not tell which one was real. It was not until Xuedong King appeared in front of him and raised the long saber in his hand that Jian Wushuang was able to determine which one was real. Buzz! Xuedong King struck out with his saber straight. The saber light was dazzling and extremely domineering. It immediately formed a huge saber river in the void and spread toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang only smiled faintly. Divine power surged in his right hand. He raised the Blood Mountain sword and directly faced the long saber. When the long saber and the Blood Mountain sword collided head-on, an extremely domineering power contained in the long saber immediately came into effect. This power, Jian Wushuang's expression changed. He staggered, but he could not help taking a few steps back. The long saber took advantage of the situation and slashed toward Jian Wushuang's head. Jian Wushuang was surprised, but he immediately dodged to the side and dodged the saber. Your strength is not bad. Jian Wushuang looked at Xuedong King. Xuedong King's strength was indeed impressive. In that moment of collision, an extremely powerful force came from the long saber. It was much stronger than that of an ordinary immortal saint. Although it was not as strong as a true saint, the gap between them was very small. Xuedong King is indeed worthy of being a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance at the Divine Master level. Now that he has reached the Immortal Saint level, his strength has soared again. Although he is not comparable to a true saint, he is definitely a top false saint, Jian Wushuang thought. There were two kinds of immortal saints, false saint and true saint. The false saint was the most common type of immortal saint. Although his cultivation had indeed reached the Immortal Saint level, he had not truly mastered the immortal body and could not fully display his strength. True saint, on the other hand, had completely mastered the immortal body and could perfectly display his strength. Such a true saint was much more powerful than a false saint. For example, the immortal saints in the Golden Crow 9 realms were almost all false saints with different strengths. As for true saints, there were only two of them. One was the Bone Emperor, and the other was the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's Saint Hong. Moreover, even if they were true saints, there were differences in strength. Moreover, in the absolute beginning divine realm, true saints were divided into 7 levels, which represented 7 different levels. These 7 different levels could be based on their understanding of laws and Tao. There were also unique skills that showed that Saint Hong was only a rank 1 true saint. As for Bone Emperor, the publicly acknowledged number 1 expert in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, there were rumors that he had long reached the pinnacle of a rank 1 true saint. There were also rumors that he had broken through to become a rank 2 true saint, but no one knew how he did it. A top false saint is indeed very powerful in the Inkstone realm. No wonder the Evergreen Realm Lord was a little afraid of Xuedong King. Jian Wushuang chuckled. The Evergreen Realm Lord and the other 3 Realm Lords in the Inkstone realm were only false saints and had average strength. If it was a one-on-one fight, no one would be a match for the Xuedong King. A Divine Master was able to block one of my strikes. You are qualified to be called a monster just because of that. Next, the bloodthirsty smile on the Xuedong King's face was followed by his figure floating out again. 2 identical figures appeared at the same time. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 2 figures flashed one after another and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye. Xuedong King raised the long saber in his hand again and swung it at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang did not show any weakness. He had exerted his divine power and swordsmanship to the fullest. Clang! 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 The low sound of metal colliding rang out continuously. Blood Mountain sword and the long saber collided again and again. Each time, a large amount of power swept out and affected the sea surface below. Huge waves immediately rose up from the calm sea surface. Each of these huge waves was over 100 feet tall and incomparably majestic. The entire sea seemed to be roaring and shrill due to the fierce battle between the two. Jian Yuan, is this all you've got? Xuedong King shouted in a low voice during the fierce battle. He did not use his full strength, but even so, he still had an absolute advantage in the battle with Jian Wushuang, which made him somewhat dissatisfied. Upon hearing Xuedong King's words, Jian Wushuang could not help but smile. After all, the opponent is a top false saint, and he is infinitely close to a true saint. If I don't use my secret skill or some other means, it will be a little difficult to fight. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. The star power in his body had been directly activated. The 7-star secret skill had been used. This secret skill instantly raised his realm from Advanced Great Divine Master to Peak Great Divine Master, and his divine power suddenly soared. Xuedong King, now you and I will fight again. Jian Wushuang grinned and moved forward. The Blood Mountain sword suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning and slashed out. This sword move was extremely swift and fierce. Ha! Xuedong King immediately sensed that Jian Wushuang's sword move seemed to have increased in power. A trace of excitement flashed in his eyes, and he immediately brandished his long saber to meet it. Clang! There was a loud sound, but this time, both of them retreated at the same time. Xuedong King's right hand, which was holding the long saber tightly, was still a little troublesome. How can a divine master be so powerful? Xuedong King was shocked. He did not know that Jian Wushuang had only used the 7-star secret skill. He had not used the divine punishment expert or the 9 luminary star armor. He had not really guided the sword essence in the Blood Mountain sword. Even so, Jian Wushuang's divine power was no weaker than his. Once Jian Wushuang went all out, his battle strength would be at the true saint level. Although he was not the best among the first-stage true saints, he was definitely not weak. Xuedong King, let's fight again. Jian Wushuang laughed and suddenly waved his hand, causing streams of black light to appear in the void in front of him. These streams of black light were 18 underworld blood divine swords with astonishing auras. As soon as the 18 dark blood divine swords appeared, under Jian Wushuang's control, they immediately fused together perfectly at the fastest speed. Buzz! A faint humming sound, like the sound of a sword, slowly sounded in the world. Although the sound was not loud, it was extremely strange. In an instant, it overshadowed the roar of the sea below. In the void, a brand new black divine sword that was only 2 meters long but extremely wide appeared out of thin air. The moment this 2-meter-long black divine sword appeared, the world around it suddenly turned gray. This gray-white seemed to have sunk into an endless sea of snow. There was a vast expanse of whiteness everywhere, and the only black color in this vast expanse of whiteness was the black divine sword in the center of the void. The black magic sword had become the sole focus of the world. Go! Jian Wushuang spat out a word, and the black magic sword instantly turned into a bolt of lightning and shot toward the direction of Xuedong King. The black magic sword pierced through the void, but before it could get close, the violent sound of wind breaking caused Xuedong King's expression to change. Xuedong King did not have the time to think too much. He instantly brandished the long blade in his hand. This long blade was like a river of stars hanging in the sky, forcefully tearing a path through the vast white world. The void trembled. In the blink of an eye, the black divine sword collided with Xuedong King's long blade. The power of the 4th stage of the Reincarnation sword formation, the world of ice and snow, also completely erupted at this moment. Boom! Boom! Xuedong King felt his arm go slightly numb, and he immediately retreated. As for the black magic sword, although it was not far away, it only shook slightly before it continued to shoot out. At the same time, Jian Wushuang's body also flew out in a strange manner. Boom! Boom! The black magic sword flew toward Xuedong King again and again in an extremely tyrannical manner. Jian Wushuang also displayed his swordsmanship, displaying it around Xuedong King again and again. The speed of his swordsmanship was extremely fast, and the power was also extremely powerful. With the combination of the two, Xuedong Wang was completely suppressed. In just a moment, "Stop, stop!" Xuedong King hurriedly shouted to stop. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and stopped what he was doing. Seeing this, Xuedong King let out a sigh of relief. Then he looked at Jian Wushuang with a burning gaze. It's incredible that a divine master can be so powerful. Jian Yuan, I rarely admire you, but I have to admire you today. It's amazing that a divine master can fight with me to this extent. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He knew that although Xuedong King had asked him to stop, it did not mean that he had won. He could see that Xuedong King had held back. Some of his powerful secret skills and trump cards should not have been used. If he went all out, his battle strength should be comparable to an ordinary first-rank true saint. However, it was clear that although Xuedong King liked to fight, he would not use his trump card to fight with others for no reason. Xuedong King, I'm here to ask you something, Jian Wushuang said directly. He had already proven his strength, and it was obvious that Xuedong King had approved of him. Therefore, Jian Wushuang could state his purpose of coming here directly. You must be asking about the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, right? Xuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang. You know? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He had come for the heaven-cleaving alliance, but he had not told Xuedong King before. He had only told the Evergreen Realm Lord. Could it be that the Evergreen Realm Lord had sent him a message before? I don't know, but I guessed it. Xuedong King smiled. Xuedong King, have a bad temper and don't have a good relationship with people. Usually, those who come to see me have more or less asked for my help. But with your strength, you don't need me to do anything for you. Besides, you're only a divine master. But a divine master is so powerful. You're a monster. A monster like you came to see me only because of the heaven-cleaving alliance. Indeed. I'm here for the heaven-cleaving alliance. Jian Wushuang nodded and admitted directly. I've just arrived in the Inkstone realm. I don't know if there is a nest of the heaven-cleaving alliance around the Inkstone realm, so I came to ask. There is a nest of the heaven-cleaving alliance nearby. Xuedong King nodded slightly. This nest is not too far from the Inkstone realm. If you want to go, I can show you the way. However, not everyone can enter the nest of the heaven-cleaving alliance. Only the official members of the heaven-cleaving alliance or you have a heaven-cleaving token. I have a heaven-cleaving token. Jian Wushuang took out his heaven-cleaving token. Seeing the heaven-cleaving token, Xuedong King raised his eyebrows. It's easy with the heaven-cleaving token. I can take you there directly. When do you plan to go? Xuedong King asked. Let's go now. Jian Wushuang said. Okay, let's go. I haven't been to the heaven-cleaving alliance's lair for a long time. I don't know if there are any missions suitable for me. Xuedong King smiled and led the way. Jian Wushuang naturally followed. On the way, Xuedong King and Jian Wushuang chatted casually. Brother Jian, you're a divine master, but your battle strength is so amazing. You should be very famous, but I've explored the surrounding territories of the Inkstone realm, but I've never heard of your name. Why? Xuedong King asked. To tell you the truth, I don't come from the border. My hometown is quite far from here, so of course you don't know, Jian Wushuang said. Is that so? Xuedong King understood. Since you have the heaven-cleaving token, it should be easy for you to pass the assessment of the heaven-cleaving alliance with your strength. However, you still have to be careful. After all, everything is in case. The assessment of the heaven-cleaving alliance is usually very harsh and even a little unusual. Oh! Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Xuedong King was an official member of the heaven-cleaving alliance and had really participated in the assessment of the heaven-cleaving alliance. Since he said so, Jian Wushuang naturally would not be careless. By the way, Brother Jian, when you arrive at the heaven-cleaving alliance later, before you participate in the assessment, someone will ask you if you have been recommended. When that time comes, Xuedong King had not finished his words. Jian Wushuang said directly, Xuedong King, I'm sorry. Not long ago, I promised someone that I would treat him as a referral. That's why he gave me the heaven-cleaving token. Jian Wushuang had indeed promised Bone Emperor to make him a referral. However, Bone Emperor had not given him a heaven-cleaving token, but a scroll of heaven-sealing map. Is that so? That's a pity. Xuedong King sighed. He had fought with Jian Wushuang before, so he knew how terrifying Jian Wushuang was. If his battle strength was so terrifying at the Divine Master level, how powerful would he be when he broke through to become an immortal saint? According to Xuedong King's estimation, Jian Wushuang was almost certain to become an official member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and it was a certainty that he would become an Earth-level member. Once Jian Wushuang broke through to become an immortal saint, the possibility of becoming a Heaven-level member was very high. In the future, he might even become an Emperor-grade member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance or even a legendary original-grade member. The person who introduced Jian Wushuang to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would also receive a large reward. Of course, Xuedong King coveted this reward. Unfortunately, Jian Wushuang had already promised others, so he could not force him. While they were talking, they had already passed through many territories through the space tunnel. Soon, they arrived at a hidden dark void. There was no light in this dark void, nor was there any material existence. We're here. Xuedong King stopped. We're here? Right here. Jian Wushuang was a little surprised. He looked carefully ahead, but he did not see anything strange in front of him, either with his naked eyes or with his soul power. In his eyes, it was just an ordinary void. "Ha! Just watch." Shuedong King gave a strange smile, but he reached out his hand and pointed at the void in front of him. Immediately, a trace of divine power spread out, which spread to the void. What surprised Jian Wushuang was that the dark void, which Jian Wushuang did not feel strange at all, began to ripple. These ripples spread out in all directions. Soon, an exquisite attic appeared in the void in front of him. This space-time is so strange. Jian Wushuang was surprised. When I first came here, I was just like you. Later, I found out that each nest of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was connected to each other by a special treasure. That treasure is extremely strange. No matter where it is, it can perfectly hide and protect the nest of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Don't underestimate this nest of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the endless territories. However, because it is connected to that treasure, even if a rule master came, he would not be able to break into this nest by force, said Shuedong King. So powerful? Jian Wushuang was shocked. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was very powerful in the Divine Beginning World. It was spread across all the territories of the Divine Beginning World. The secret layers of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance were numerous in the Divine Beginning World. However, none of the layers were connected to a unique treasure of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Each of the layers was perfectly hidden, and even rule masters could not touch them. Such a method was indeed impressive. Only official members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance or those who have the Heaven-Cleaving token can enter the secret layers of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Brother Jian, let's go in, said Shuedong King. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King immediately entered the attic side by side. The attic did not look big from the outside, but it actually had a universe inside. As soon as he entered the pavilion, Jian Wushuang appeared in a large hall. The hall was very vast and there were all kinds of chairs and tables around it. However, there were only 2 or 3 people in such a large hall, which made it very quiet. The 2 or 3 people were wearing the same gray robes and gray masks. Why is it so quiet? Jian Wushuang was surprised. It's normal. After all, this is the endless territory, not the boundless third heaven, where experts are as numerous as clouds. Not to mention the immortal saint. Even the invincible divine master is pitifully few here. Naturally, not many people become members of Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. In the territory surrounding this secret lair, there are no more than 20 members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, said Shuedong King. Less than 20? So few. Jian Wushuang was stunned. Less? Brother Jian, you must know how high the threshold of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is. For example, even the invincible Divine Master needs a certain level of strength and luck before he can truly join. There are only dozens of realms around this nest. It's already very good to have nearly 20 members, said Shuedong King. That's true. Jian Wushuang nodded. Although there aren't many of them, they are of high quality. Even the weakest one should be an invincible Divine Master, and most of them are immortal saints. It's no wonder that the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can gather more than 3 immortal saints in any corner of the beginning divine realm in such a short period of time. By the way, why are they all wearing the same gray robes and gray masks? Jian Wushuang asked again. Gray robes and gray masks. These are the attire of ordinary members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, Shuedong King explained. After all, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is an extremely loose and unconstrained union. There are countless experts who have joined the alliance, and many of them have a certain status. Most of them cannot look at others with their real faces. Therefore, after becoming a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, they will be given such gray robes and masks. The gray robe and the mask can not only represent his position in the Heaven-Slaying Alliance but also conceal his aura. For example, your aura is as hot as fire, but through the mask, your aura can become very gentle and calm, and outsiders cannot see it. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood. Of course, although the gray robe and mask are the attire of an ordinary member, whether you wear it in this secret lair, on the way to the mission, and whether you hide your real identity is up to you. Like me, I usually don't bother to disguise myself, so I passed the heaven-cleaving alliance test as Shuedong King, he said. You are so free and easy. Jian Wushuang smiled. He had heard from St. Crimson Rock that members of the heaven-cleaving alliance could hide their identity and make it easier for them to do things. Many people who were high and powerful on the surface had to pay attention to their identity. Many things were not easy for them to do in person, but after going through the heaven-cleaving alliance, they had no scruples. They could plunder and kill at will. Now it seemed that they relied on this special outfit. My identity is the most sensitive, so I definitely can't show my true face. I have to wear this gray robe and mask in the future. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Under the guidance of Shuedong King, Jian Wushuang came to the counter in the center of the hall. A thin elder in a Taoist robe was dozing off. Elder Chiu, don't sleep, Shuedong King shouted. The thin elder in a Taoist robe moved his eyelids slightly and then opened his eyes. After opening his eyes, he glanced at Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King and asked, "What's the matter? This little brother next to me wants to join the heaven-cleaving alliance," Shuedong King said. "Where's the heaven-cleaving token?" The thin elder, who Shuedong King referred to as Elder Chiu, reached out his hand. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang handed over his heaven-cleaving token. Elder Chiu glanced at the token and nodded slightly. "What is your name, or what title do you use?" "Title." Jian Wushuang's expression changed. "Brother Jian, there are only a few people in the heaven-cleaving alliance like me who are willing to show their true faces. Most of them wear gray robes and masks to hide their identities. Naturally, they won't use their real names, so most of them will give themselves a title. If you want to hide your identity in the future, you can also give yourself a title," Shuedong King said. Jian Wushuang immediately fell into deep thought. Title. He still remembered that when he was young, he used to travel around in the Greenfire world under the name of Swordsman. Later, when he came to the 10,000 Chaotic Worlds, he also became famous as Sword Emperor. Now, when it came to the title, Jian Wushuang thought of Sword Emperor. But soon he shook his head. Sword Emperor was a very common title in the beginning Divine Realm. Many experts in the beginning Divine Realm were called Swordsman, Sword Emperor, and Sword Saint. Naturally, Sword Emperor was a good title. Jian Wushuang thought of a more special title. After pondering for a moment, Jian Wushuang finally thought of a title. "I'll call you Sword Heavenly Marquis." "Sword Heavenly Marquis?" Shuedong King looked over and nodded. "It's a very domineering title." Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. Sword Heavenly Marquis was the first name that came to his mind. It was the place where he was born, but unfortunately, the Sword Heavenly Marquis mansion no longer existed after so many years. Elder Chiu, who was standing in front of the counter, waved his hand and left the words, "Sword Heavenly Marquis" on the heaven-cleaving token. "Leave your communication token here. I'll inform you when the test is ready," Elder Chiu said. Jian Wushuang handed his message token to the elder and asked, "How long will it take?" "The test of the heaven-cleaving alliance will be held every once in a while. Each time, dozens of experts from hundreds of nests will gather to take part in the test. It has been 9 years since the last test, and there is less than a year left. You can stay here and wait, or you can leave on your own. When the test is over, you can come back," the elder said. "It's only been a year. I'll just wait here." Jian Wushuang smiled and looked at Shuedong King. "Shuedong King, thank you so much. Don't worry. It's rare to see a talent that I admire. Anyway, I have nothing to do these days, so I'll stay here with you. I'll also take a look at some of the missions that have been released recently." Shuedong King smiled. Then he looked at the elder and said, "Old man, show me some of the new missions that have been released recently in the nearby territories." The elder glanced at Shuedong King and casually threw a jade slip over. "Here's the mission list. Take a look for yourself." Shuedong King took the jade slip and found a seat beside Jian Wushuang. "Brother Jian, it won't be long before you become a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Your strength is no less than mine. You can take a look at the mission list." Shuedong King also put the jade slip in front of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and the two began to examine the jade slip together. 1-star ordinary task. Kill a peak divine master. Task location, Blood Smoke Cave. Task reward, 400,000 sacred elixirs, plus a 3rd-grade offensive holy treasure. 1-star ordinary task. Protect an Earth Divine Master for 100 years. Task location, Luo Something Realm. Mission reward, 600,000 sacred elixirs. 3-star ordinary mission. Kill the 3 Shadow Saints. Mission reward, 2 million sacred elixirs, 2 superior 3rd-grade offensive holy treasures, and 1 superior protective armor holy treasure. Jian Wushuang took a casual glance at the first 3 missions, but he was shocked by them. There were many special missions in the Jade Slip. Each mission only had a simple introduction, but there was no detailed process or background. But generally, the rewards for these missions were extremely high. Just killing a peak Great Divine Master can get me 400,000 sacred elixirs and a 3rd-grade offensive holy treasure. Isn't the reward too high? Or is it that this peak Great Divine Master is unusual and difficult to kill? Jian Wushuang could not help but ask. No, if I'm not wrong, that peak Great Divine Master's strength is average. With our strength, we can kill him easily. The reason why the mission is still here and the reward is so high should be the location of the mission, which is the Blood Smoke Cave, Shuedong King said. Is there anything special about the Blood Smoke Cave? Jian Wushuang asked. Sword Heavenly Marquis, you don't come from the surrounding territories, so you don't know anything about it. Shuedong King had already changed the way he addressed Jian Wushuang. Previously, he had always called Jian Wushuang Brother Jian, which made Jian Wushuang feel very strange. Therefore, he asked Shuedong King to directly call him Sword Heavenly Marquis. The Blood Smoke Cave is a famous danger zone in the surrounding area. In this danger zone, let alone divine masters, even ordinary immortal saints have a certain chance of dying, while ordinary invincible divine masters have at least a 70% chance of dying. Shuedong King said in a deep voice, there is a 70% chance of dying. Those invincible divine masters who have already become members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance will definitely not take the risk. And most of the immortal saints would not risk breaking into the Blood Smoke Cave for a mere 400,000 sacred elixirs. Therefore, the reward for this mission is not high but too low. If the person who issued the mission can increase the reward to 600,000 or 700,000 sacred elixirs, then the invincible divine master or the immortal saint should go and take the risk. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood. But then he asked, since the Blood Smoke Cave is so dangerous, how did the peak divine master who was on the mission break in? Is he still alive? Who knows? In short, although the mission is only 1 star, I'm not interested, Shuedong King said. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and continued to read the missions on the Jade Slip. After a short while, he read through the missions briefly. Are all the missions here? So few. Jian Wushuang frowned. There were only about 20 missions on the Jade Slip, which was indeed a small number. These are only the missions in the territory around the nest. We can get there in the shortest time possible. There are more missions from other territories. Elder Qiu also has them. If you don't think there are any suitable missions here, you can go to him. However, it's more troublesome to carry out missions in other territories than in the territory around the nest, Shuedong King said. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. In addition, the members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance are divided into different levels: ordinary, Earth level, Heaven level, and Emperor level. Naturally, the missions taken by the members of different levels are different. For example, I'm still an ordinary member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, so I can only take ordinary missions, but I'm not qualified to take Earth-level missions. Missions of different levels can be divided into 1 to 3 stars according to their difficulty. The 1-star mission you mentioned to kill the Peak Divine Master in the Blood Smoke Cave is a 1-star mission. Under normal circumstances, the more difficult the mission is, the higher the reward will be, said Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang understood. Sword Heavenly Marquis, look carefully. Do you think any of these tasks are suitable for you? Shuedong King looked over. I haven't passed the assessment of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance yet. I'm not even an official member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. It's useless to look at these tasks, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. How is it useless? With your strength, it should be easy for you to pass the assessment as long as you're not too unlucky. After you pass the assessment, you can accept these ordinary tasks. First, see if there are any tasks that you think you can accept. Then, let's join hands to do a job, Xuedong King said expectantly. Work together? Can we work together to complete these tasks? Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. Of course. Xuedong King grinned. We can work together to complete any task in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, but the reward will not change. We need to distribute it ourselves. In addition, the tasks that we work together to complete are not counted in the promotion task. Promotion mission? Jian Wushuang looked puzzled. Promotion missions are missions that need to be completed to advance from one level to another. For example, if an ordinary member wants to advance to an Earth-level member, in addition to his own strength, he has to complete 3 3-star ordinary missions alone. If the same Earth-level member wants to become a Heaven-level member, he has to complete 3 3-star Earth-level missions alone, Xuedong King said. Previously, I was just an invincible supreme divinity, so I could only accept some 1-star ordinary missions. At the very most, I could only accept 2-star ordinary missions. As for 3-star missions, I've never tried them before. Now that I've broken through to the level of a saint, my strength has skyrocketed, and I've completely reached the level of an Earth-rank member. However, although my strength has reached that level, I haven't completed the promotion mission yet. In addition, I didn't accept a 3-star mission before, so I didn't know how difficult it was. So I wasn't sure at first. The best way is to join hands with others to try to complete a 3-star mission. Naturally, you are my best candidate. After saying that, Xuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang with some expectation. I see. Jian Wushuang nodded silently. Xuedong King had never tried a 3-star mission, so it was normal for him to be cautious. If I pass the test in a year, I can try to complete a 3-star mission with you, Jian Wushuang said. Haha, that's great. Xuedong King was delighted and immediately began to explore the Jade Slip. There are only 2 3-star normal missions in our territory. Of these 2 missions, although this one looks easier, it's too troublesome. It'll take at least 100 years to complete. Moreover, the reward isn't that great. It's just a bare 1.5 million sacred elixirs. If we split it between the 2 of us, there won't be much. Let's go with this one. It seems to be a good mission. Jian Wushuang immediately looked at the mission that Xuedong King was pointing at. The 3-star mission mentioned by Xuedong King was to kill the 3rd Saint Shadows. The reward was 2 million Saint Elixirs, 2 superior 3rd-grade offensive holy treasures, and 1 superior protective armor holy treasure. It's to kill 3 immortal saints. Xuedong King, are you confident? Jian Wushuang asked casually. Well, I don't know, but I've heard of the 3 Shadow Saints. Xuedong King's face darkened. The 3 Shadow Saints are in the territory we're in, and they have occupied a large territory a long time ago. However, they are evil. After they occupied that territory, they completely turned it into their paradise. Countless cultivators in the entire territory submit to them and live like slaves. I heard that he had already closed the space passage between the realm and the outer realm. He also deployed various means around the realm and had an army guarding it. Unless the cultivators in that realm can cultivate to the immortal saint level, it's impossible for them to escape from that realm. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang's eyes turned slightly cold. In other words, the 3 of them enslaved a realm? Jian Wushuang asked in a low voice. Yes, countless cultivators in that realm are like slaves. They don't have any freedom. They were even born to make fun of the 3 Shadow Saints. A long time ago, I heard about the 3 Shadow Saints. Unfortunately, I was only a divine master at that time, so I couldn't deal with them. But now, a cold light flashed in Xuedong King's eyes. Jian Wushuang's face was also cold. He could tell that what Xuedong King said was true. Otherwise, the mission to kill the 3 Shadow Saints would not have appeared in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. He had heard from the Bone Emperor that the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would not easily kill some experts. However, if this expert was on the mission of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, there were only 3 possibilities. First, this expert had provoked the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Second, someone had given an extremely generous reward and price. Third, this person deserved to die. The 3 Shadow Saints clearly belonged to that person who deserved to die. Sword Heavenly Marquis, what do you think of this task? Do you want to do it? Shuedong King looked over. If I pass the test in a year, I will complete this task with you, Jian Wushuang said. Haha, that's great. Shuedong King immediately smiled. Although the 3 Shadow Saints are not very strong individually, they stay together all year round and have a tacit understanding. If the 3 of them really work together, I, a top false saint, am not absolutely sure that I can kill them. But if I work together with you, I am absolutely sure. Jian Wushuang just smiled faintly. Then the 2 of them waited quietly. Although they said they were waiting, in fact, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King had a casual exchange for a while before they went to cultivate. He was extremely talented. Although the year was short, he could still make some progress. In the blink of an eye, a year passed. Sword Heavenly Marquis, come with me, the elder called Jian Wushuang. Brother, I wish you good luck. I'll wait for your triumphant return here, Shuedong King said with a laugh. Jian Wushuang followed Elder Qiu toward the inner hall. Soon, Jian Wushuang arrived in front of a huge wormhole. What's this? Jian Wushuang looked at the wormhole in front of him in confusion. On the other side of the wormhole is the gathering point. Every 10 years, nearly 100 nests or nearly 100 territories will be located there. Take your heaven-cleaving token and go there directly. When you get there, someone will tell you what to do, Elder Qiu said. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Without any hesitation, he stepped into the wormhole in front of him. With a flash of light, Jian Wushuang appeared on the top of a towering mountain. Around the top of the mountain was an endless sea, with waves constantly sweeping over. When Jian Wushuang arrived, there were already many people gathered in the open space on the top of the mountain. At a glance, there were nearly 20 people. These people were either standing or sitting alone. No one spoke. When Jian Wushuang appeared, a few people glanced at him. Another one. His aura is very unique. I can't tell his specific realm. Is he the immortal saint? Some people muttered in their hearts, but they only muttered a few words. Jian Wushuang's appearance did not attract the attention of others. Jian Wushuang looked around at the people around him and said, Didn't Elder Qiu say that nearly 100 people from the surrounding lairs are gathered here? Why are there only so few people? Jian Wushuang was surprised, but he soon understood. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's assessment was held once every 10 years. 10 years was very short for ordinary divine masters, not to mention immortal saints. Although the assessment was conducted in nearly 100 nests at the same time, most nests would not have people take the assessment for 10 years. Therefore, there were at most 20 to 30 people taking the assessment each time. Among the nearly 20 people in front of him, divine masters accounted for more than half of them. As for the immortal saint, there were only 4 people on the field. It seems that the assessment is conducted by divine masters and the immortal saint at the same time. I wonder what the content of the assessment is. Jian Wushuang muttered. He did not take the initiative to talk to them. Instead, he found a place to sit down casually. Jian Wushuang waited here for about 2 hours. There were more than 30 people gathered on the top of the mountain, but there were only 5 immortal saints. At this time, whoosh, an old man with a goatee suddenly appeared in the void above the top of the mountain. The old man with a goatee had a pair of narrow and strange eyes with a faint, cold luster. He looked down at the people below. Are all the participants here? The old man with the goatee said coldly. 5 immortal saints and 27 reverends. TSK. I hope that half of them will survive after this mission. Hearing this, the 27 reverends and the 5 immortal saints below trembled. All of them were quite powerful. For example, the 27 reverends were all unrivaled reverends. There were many unrivaled reverends who had reached the 2nd stage or even the 3rd stage. They had great confidence in their own strength. It was because of this that they dared to participate in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's assessment. However, when the goateed old man saw them, he directly said that it was already good enough for half of them to survive. This instantly caused a trace of pressure to appear at the bottom of their hearts. Don't be nervous. Although there will be a large number of people who fail the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's assessment, as long as you are strong enough and careful enough, surviving is not a problem. The goateed old man gave a strange smile. Sir, may I ask what the content of the assessment is? When will we start the assessment? A deep voice sounded. The one who spoke was one of the 5 immortal saints. Don't be anxious. The assessment hasn't started yet. When it really starts, I will naturally tell you the content. As for now, let's wait for a while. There is still a special person who hasn't arrived yet. The goateed elder said. Special person? The expressions of the people who came to participate in the test all changed. Then they quietly waited. After waiting for another hour, finally, a ray of light flashed. Then, a fiery figure appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone immediately looked over. The person who came was over 2 meters tall and graceful. Obviously, it was a woman. However, the woman was wearing the same gray robe as the members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. She also wore the same gray mask. Let me introduce you. This is the Heaven-Rank member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, Yao Yu. The old man with a goatee said with a smile. Yao Yu, Heaven-Rank member? The people below were shocked. They looked at the masked woman with respect. The members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance were far from each other, and there was a huge difference in strength. The ordinary members were mostly composed of divine masters and some immortal saints who had just broken through from divine masters and had not had the time to complete the promotion mission. For example, Xuedong King was an immortal saint who had not had the time to complete the promotion mission. He was only an ordinary member now. The weakest Earth-level member should be a top false saint, while most of them had already reached the true saint level or even a rank 2 true saint. For example, the overlord of the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, Bone Emperor, was supreme in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Saint Hong of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was also a rank 1 true saint, but he was still weaker than Bone Emperor. Therefore, Jian Wushuang estimated that Bone Emperor should be a rank 2 true saint, but Bone Emperor was only an Earth-level member. Generally, the weakest Heaven-level member was a rank 2 true saint, and the stronger one was a rank 4 or 5 true saint. Since this demonic jade was a Heaven rank member, she was at least a powerful 2nd rank true saint or even more. Faced with such an expert, the invincible reverends below and the 5 immortal saints who had not even reached the true saint level naturally had to maintain their due respect. This test is quite special. When the time comes, we will need Lord Yao Yu's help, the goateed elder said humbly. Under the mask, Yao Yu's cold voice sounded. The goateed elder smiled and waved his hand. A spatial tunnel immediately appeared in the void beside him. Let's go. Let's head to the test site. The goateed elder smiled and was the first to rush into the spatial tunnel. Yao Yu, the 5 immortal saints, and the 27 reverends immediately followed. There was a special territory in the Endless Territories. This territory was made up of 6 different realms of different sizes. These 6 realms had countless cultivators, and these cultivators all knew one name, Black Dragon Mountain. These 6 realms were ruled by Black Dragon Mountain. In the center of these 6 realms was a floating land. This land was not very vast, and this was the base of Black Dragon Mountain, which was also the sacred land of Black Dragon Mountain mentioned by the cultivators in the 6 realms. However, at this moment, the entire sacred land of Black Dragon Mountain was covered with a layer of barrier. This layer of the barrier was extremely powerful and was not something that ordinary cultivators could break. In the center of the barrier, on a towering black mountain, there were countless pavilions and palaces. In the center of the towering Great Hall, many experts of the highest level of Black Dragon Mountain gathered together. These experts' expressions were extremely gloomy. It was extremely ugly. Patriarch, is there really nothing we can do? A voice suddenly sounded. Everyone's eyes were all focused on an old man with white hair sitting on the throne in the center. The old man frowned. After a while, he sighed. I've already used all my connections and tried to contact the people of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Unfortunately, the heaven-cleaving alliance didn't pay any attention to it. Ignored? How is that possible? Are they really not going to give us a chance? The expressions of the experts present changed. The heaven-cleaving alliance is too strong, too detached. The weathered elder shook his head. Compared to the high and mighty heaven-cleaving alliance, my Black Dragon Mountain is nothing. It's just an ant, not even comparable to an ant. But to my Black Dragon Mountain, the heaven-cleaving alliance is a tall mountain and a giant statue. When did you see a giant statue that would be willing to sit down and talk to an ant? We have no choice. This time our Black Dragon Mountain is doomed. We have no chance at all. Who asked us to be so blind to provoke the heaven-cleaving alliance? Patriarch, the reason why our Black Dragon Mountain provoked the heaven-cleaving alliance this time was purely an accident. It was not intentional. The heaven-cleaving alliance should also know this. How could they still do this? Someone said unwillingly. It was an accident. The heaven-cleaving alliance also knows this. However, even if it was an accident, the high and mighty heaven-cleaving alliance wouldn't allow it. It's like a beggar accidentally bumping into an emperor. Although it was an unintentional act, it has already offended the emperor's majesty. For the sake of his majesty, the emperor must also punish him. The aged elder sighed softly. Hearing this, the experts of the Black Dragon Mountain turned pale. Despair rose in the hearts of most of them. In front of the heaven-cleaving alliance, a mere Black Dragon Mountain was indeed too weak. Now that the heaven-cleaving alliance has completely sealed off our Black Dragon Mountain, none of the cultivators of our Black Dragon Mountain can escape. Could it be that the heaven-cleaving alliance wants to completely wipe out our Black Dragon Mountain? An immortal saint of the Black Dragon Mountain said in a low voice, "It shouldn't be to the extent of completely wiping out." The aged old man shook his head. Our Black Dragon Mountain has only inadvertently provoked the heaven-cleaving alliance. The heaven-cleaving alliance will descend and punish us. It might directly destroy our Black Dragon Mountain, but it definitely won't be too extreme. Instead, it will leave a certain amount of life force. Otherwise, with the heaven-cleaving alliance's methods, after completely sealing off our Black Dragon Mountain, they will immediately take action and kill us all. However, several days have already passed, but other than that enchantment, the heaven-cleaving alliance hasn't made a single move. Obviously, the heaven-cleaving alliance doesn't have the intention to completely wipe us out. Then what does the heaven-cleaving alliance want to do? The surrounding people looked over. Who knows? Just wait. The weathered elder sighed softly, but his heart was filled with helplessness. Black Dragon Mountain in the void within the barrier. Along with the appearance of a spatial tunnel, the many experts participating in this assessment, as well as the goateed elder and the heaven grade member Xueyu, all appeared in this void. After appearing, everyone looked around blankly. Follow me. The goateed elder waved his hand, and everyone immediately followed him forward. After rushing forward, it took them only half a day to arrive in front of a towering black mountain. Jian Wushuang and the others could clearly see the various buildings on the Black Dragon Mountain and the aura of cultivators coming from the buildings. Some of the hidden auras were extremely powerful, enough to make invincible divine masters and immortal saints treat them seriously. This is the place. The goateed elder smiled and then looked at Xueyu. Master Xueyu, please. Xueyu, who was 2 meters tall and wearing a mask, nodded slightly and walked toward the Black Dragon Mountain in front of her. A moment later, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Xueyu's body. As soon as this aura erupted, the pupils of the unrivaled reverent gods and the 5 immortal saints who were participating in the assessment shrank. So powerful! This aura is at least a 3rd-level true saint. It might even be a peak existence among 3rd-level true saints. This blood jade is too strong. Everyone exclaimed in shock, but Blood Jade had already attacked. Her technique was very casual. She did not even take out her divine weapon. She only used one hand to slash with her finger. But this slash contained endless power. A blade light that blotted out the sky swept out at a terrifying speed. Wherever the blade light went, everything was torn apart. In the end, This blade light swept onto the towering Black Dragon Mountain. This towering Black Dragon Mountain was instantly cut in half by this blade light from above. The entire mountain fell to the sides. Numerous experts from the Black Dragon Mountain within the mountain were shocked and furious as they rushed forward. Are the people from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance here? Many high-level experts from the Black Dragon Mountain had already gathered in the void, and the one leading them was the Weathered Elder. The Weathered Elder and the immortal saints behind him also noticed Shui Yu's existence. Seeing the terrifying aura that Shui Yu emitted, their bodies and hearts could not help but tremble. Shui Yu glanced at the vicissitudes of Life Elder and the others with her cold eyes. Then whoosh, she directly rushed out like a stream of light. You guys retreat quickly. The vicissitudes of Life Elder let out a roar, and a powerful aura immediately emerged from his body. This aura had also reached the true Saint realm, and it was much stronger than that of Saint Hong, who had fought Jian Wushuang head-on. It should have reached the peak of the first-rank true Saint realm. He immediately displayed his strongest strength in an attempt to block Shui Yu. However, after coming into contact with Shui Yu, in just one exchange, the saber light formed by Shui Yu's single hand directly cut off the old man's arm. Then he struck out with his single hand. Before the old man could even react, his divine body was destroyed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Divine power began to gather in the sky. The Weathered Elder controlled the immortal body. After his divine body collapsed, he immediately relied on his divine power to rebuild his divine body. When Shui Yu saw this, she did not stop him. However, when the Weathered Elder's divine body was full, she struck out with her saber again. Bang! The Weathered Elder's divine body collapsed again, and then it was rebuilt again. This was repeated 5 times. Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. I have no regrets in dying. Please give me a chance to live. After the old man died hysterically, his body collapsed for the 6th time. However, after this collapse, he could not reassemble again. Instead, he died. Is he dead? A true saint with an immortal body was killed just like that? A heaven-grade member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is too terrifying. The 5 immortal saints and 27 divine masters who had come to participate in the assessment widened their eyes in shock. The Weathered Elder was a true saint with an immortal body. However, after this battle, the Weathered Elder had no room to fight back. Even if he had an immortal body, he was still killed by Shui Yu. They were shocked by Shui Yu's strength. At the same time, they understood that having an immortal body did not mean that he was immortal. The immortal body is indeed sufficient, but it requires a lot of divine power to regenerate. The Elder's divine power was only enough for him to regenerate 5 times. After that, he was killed by Shui Yu. Jian Wushuang sighed. However, he also understood that the vicissitudes of life had killed the old man so easily because he did not want to escape. He had no chance to escape. However, if it were any other true saint, they would immediately try to escape after knowing that they were no match for Shui Yu. If he could regenerate his divine body 5 times, he would have 5 chances to escape. The Weathered Elder, who was also the ancestor of the Black Dragon Mountain, was killed by Shui Yu. This scene happened in front of the experts of the Black Dragon Mountain. When the experts of the Black Dragon Mountain saw this, they were not only furious but also terrified. Yes, even their ancestor was killed so easily, let alone them. They did not know what they were going to face. But at this moment, Shui Yu, who had killed the Elder, did not continue to attack the experts of Black Dragon Mountain. Instead, he turned around and returned to the side of the goateed Elder. Master Shui Yu, thank you for your trouble. The goateed Elder said gratefully. Yes. Shui Yu nodded slightly, turned around, and left. He left? Master Shui Yu actually left. The people who came to participate in the assessment were baffled. Only Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and vaguely understood the content of the assessment. At this time, the goateed Elder walked toward the experts of Black Dragon Mountain. He came to the experts of Black Dragon Mountain and smiled faintly. Everyone of Black Dragon Mountain, listen up. After today, Black Dragon Mountain will no longer exist. This is the punishment for your Black Dragon Mountain provoking the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. The figures of the experts from the Black Dragon Mountain trembled, but they were helpless. Although the Black Dragon Mountain will completely disappear, the cultivators from the Black Dragon Mountain, other than the ancestor of the Black Dragon Mountain who was killed just now, have a chance to survive. Hearing these words, the experts from the Black Dragon Mountain raised their heads in unison. Numerous gazes were fixed on the goateed old man. The goateed elder smiled cunningly and said, "What you need to do is very simple. You need to do your best to escape." Escape! The experts of the Black Dragon Mountain were stunned. The goateed elder continued. The land where the Black Dragon Mountain is located can be considered a relatively small continent. Even an immortal saint would need 2 to 3 days to cross this land. I can give you 1 day to escape first. You can escape to this land. You can hide anywhere except underground. After 1 day, the immortal saints and the invincible reverends behind me will frantically search for and kill them. This search and pursuit will last for 10 days. After 10 days, our people will stop and those who survive will be able to leave safely. The experts from Black Dragon Mountain looked at each other. They finally understood the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's purpose. It was obvious that the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance treated them as a training mission. They had to survive for 10 days in the pursuit of these experts from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. 10 days was not a long time, but it was not short either. Fortunately, as long as we can escape this pursuit, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance will show mercy. Humph, this land is so big, and the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance only has so few people. It's not easy to find us. We thought we were going to die, but now it seems that our chances of survival are still very high. Many experts in Black Dragon Mountain were whispering. "Sir." Black Dragon Mountain thought the black-haired man made a deep voice. The aura of the black-haired man was as strong as that of Shuedong King, who had fought with Jian Wushuang. Apparently, he was also a top false saint. During the 10 days of pursuit, if the experts of Black Dragon Mountain meet the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, they will fight. But if they are killed by us during the battle, haha, you don't have to worry about this. These little fellows behind me can only be considered as members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance after they pass the test. They are not yet members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the goateed elder said with a strange smile. I've already said that all you have to do is to stay alive in this Black Dragon Mountain for 10 days. There are no other restrictions. You can use whatever means you have. As long as you have enough strength, let alone killing these people behind me during the fierce battle, you can even treat them as prey and hunt them down. The goateed old man said with a smile. Hearing this, the experts of the Black Dragon Mountain felt relieved, especially the powerful immortal saints of the Black Dragon Mountain. However, there is one thing. No one is allowed to escape underground. This is the only rule. The goateed elder said coldly. Don't take any chances. Right now, the Black Dragon Mountain is completely within the enchantment of our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Your every move is monitored by our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. If anyone dares to escape underground, our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance will immediately execute them. The people of Black Dragon Mountain looked at each other and nodded secretly. This pursuit was obviously a test. Moreover, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had indeed given them a great chance of survival. And if they were to escape underground again, although this land was not big, there were too many places to hide if they were to count underground. If a cultivator deliberately hid in the deepest part of the underground, it would be much more difficult to search. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance knew this, which was why they set the rule that they were not allowed to hide underground. Well, the opportunity has been given to you. Now it's up to you to seize it. Try your best to escape in a day. The goateed elder waved his hand. The densely packed experts of Black Dragon Mountain immediately turned to the East God. They saw a large number of figures rushing in all directions at the fastest speed. In a moment, they had completely disappeared in front of Jian Wushuang and the others who were participating in the assessment. The 5 immortal saints and 27 divine masters who were participating in the assessment stood there with strange expressions on their faces. Although the goateed elder did not tell them about the contents of the assessment, they had roughly understood it through the conversation between the goateed elder and the experts from Black Dragon Mountain. This assessment was nothing more than a large-scale hunt. and whether they could pass the assessment should be determined by the quality and number of experts they killed from the Black Dragon Mountain. At this time, the goateed old man had already turned around. At the same time, he waved his sleeve and immediately threw jade slips at everyone present. This is the list of experts from the Black Dragon Mountain. Other than the patriarch of the Black Dragon Mountain who has already been killed by Lord Yao Yu, more than 90% of the others are currently on this land. And according to their strength, the Heaven-Slaying Alliance has marked the corresponding points for these experts from the Black Dragon Mountain. Take a careful look, the goateed old man said. Everyone took the jade slip and began to examine it carefully. Sure enough, the jade slip was a list of experts. There were hundreds of experts on the list, all of whom were at least at the Great Divine Master level. As for the Immortal Saint, there were 11 of them on the list. 11 Immortal Saints. Jian Wushuang's pupils constricted. He had just reached the gap. There were indeed 12 Immortal Saints in Black Dragon Mountain. Besides the strongest true saint who had been killed by Yao Yu, there were still 11 left. The 11 Immortal Saints had also spread out. The points for these 11 Immortal Saints were also very high. According to their strength, the weakest Immortal Saint had 10,000 points, while the slightly stronger one had around 20,000 to 30,000 points. In addition, among the 11 Immortal Saints, 2 had reached the level of a peak false saint. They had the highest points, each with 50,000 points. Is this the point to judge whether we can pass the test? Jian Wushuang muttered. The goateed elder spoke again. You should have guessed the content of this test, so I don't need to say anything more. I'll only tell you the standard of passing the test. It's very simple. The Immortal Saint has 50,000 points, while the Divine Master has 10,000 points. Hearing this, the 5 Immortal Saints' pupils could not help but shrink. The reverend gods also had solemn expressions. 50,000 points were not small for those Immortal Saints. After all, killing the weakest Immortal Saint was only 10,000 points. If they wanted to gather 50,000 points, it meant that they had to kill 2 or 3 Immortal Saints from Black Dragon Mountain. But Immortal Saints were not so easy to kill. It was also extremely difficult to gather 10,000 points against 27 Immortal Saints. After all, on this list of experts, other than the 11 Immortal Saints who had more than 10,000 points, the rest of the Immortal Saints did not have very high points. For example, below the Immortal Saint of Black Dragon Mountain, the strongest had 4 invincible Divine Masters. Each of these 4 invincible Divine Masters only had 3,000 points. As for Peak Great Divine Masters, the average Peak Great Divine Masters only had 500 points. Even some extremely powerful Peak Great Divine Masters only had at most 1,000 points. In other words, if these Divine Masters wanted to pass the test, they would have to kill at least a dozen Peak Great Divine Masters of Black Dragon Mountain. It was not difficult for them to kill a Divine Master at the peak of the Black Dragon Mountain with their strength. However, it was not easy for them to pass the test in just 10 days, especially since they had gathered on the land where the Immortal Saint had gathered. I've long heard that the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's test is extremely harsh. Now it seems that it's true. Jian Wushuang sighed. He only sighed slightly, but he did not feel too much pressure. It was only 10,000 points. It was absolutely not difficult for him. Sir, I wonder how we can determine that we killed the experts of the Black Dragon Mountain after we killed them? A Divine Master asked. That's simple. The Black Dragon Mountain can be considered a relatively powerful force in endless territories. Every expert under the command of the Black Dragon Mountain has an identity token. This identity token corresponds to their identity. After 10 days have passed and everyone has stopped, I will calculate your respective points based on the identity token you have obtained, the goateed elder said. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Well, I've told you everything I need to tell you. The information on the experts of Black Dragon Mountain is very detailed. Take a look and be fully prepared. You can leave in 1 day, the goateed elder said. Jian Wushuang immediately began to carefully read the information on the experts on the list. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, a day had passed. Time's up. Let's go, the goateed elder said in a deep voice. The 5 Immortal Saints, 27 Divine Masters, and Jian Wushuang, who had been waiting in the void for a long time, set off immediately. Everyone spread out and headed in their respective directions. Jian Wushuang also flew straight ahead. This land is not big, and the experts of Black Dragon Mountain can't hide underground. It shouldn't be difficult to find them. 10 days should be enough time. Jian Wushuang smiled. He was also very fast, flying in the direction of the beginning alone. While he was flying, his soul power was also unscrupulously spread. Although his soul level was not high, it was extremely tough. His soul power was also very vast and covered a wide area. After 4 hours of unscrupulous soul searching, he had already sensed the presence of several experts in a dense forest. Hiding in the dense forest and deliberately concealing your aura. Do you think I can't find you? Jian Wushuang stood in the void above the dense forest and looked down with a mocking smile. Come out. A magnificent voice came out of Jian Wushuang's mouth and reverberated throughout the entire dense forest. In the dense forest, the expressions of the experts from Black Dragon Mountain who were carefully hiding there changed. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. For figures rose up at the same time and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. He was discovered so quickly? This kid's perceptive ability is quite strong. I heard from the elders that the Divine Masters who dared to participate in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's assessment are all top-notch Divine Masters and even invincible Divine Masters. It's not strange that their perceptive ability is strong. The 4 experts from Black Dragon Mountain stared at Jian Wushuang with cold eyes. 2 peak Divine Masters and 2 advanced Divine Masters are working together? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, but he was not surprised. The goateed elder said that the experts from Black Dragon Mountain only needed to survive for 10 days, and they could use any other means. Even if they joined hands, it was not against the rules. Boy, I know you must be strong since you dared to participate in the assessment of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. But now that the 4 of us have joined hands, we are not afraid of you at all. If you know what's good for you, you'd better leave now or else. A purple-haired demonic youth among the 4 said, but he had not finished his words. Shut up! Jian Wushuang shouted in a low voice and flew out. Like a bolt of lightning, Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the 4. Be careful! Kill him! The 4 great Divine Masters of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance looked cold. 2 of them had killing intent in their eyes, and their divine power burst out instantly. They were only great Divine Masters. They had never heard of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance before. It was only because the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had used a barrier to completely seal them that they knew of the existence of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. As for some of the matters of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, they had also heard about it from some elders of the Black Dragon Mountain who were at the level of immortal saints. But they did not know much. They only knew that the Divine Masters who dared to participate in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's assessment were very strong. But they did not know how strong they were. Now, they thought that the 4 great Divine Masters would be able to defeat Jian Wushuang. But in the end, buzz! A demonic sword light flashed past. The 4 great Divine Masters did not even see how Jian Wushuang attacked, but the sword light had already passed them. The 4 of them widened their eyes and opened their mouths, but their vitality had been completely cut off. 2 peak Great Divine Masters and 2 advanced Great Divine Masters didn't run away when they saw me? Jian Wushuang looked at the 4 corpses and shook his head with a smile. Among the 27 Divine Masters who had come to participate in the assessment, 99% of them were invincible Divine Masters. Any one of them was enough to wipe out a group of peak Great Divine Masters. In front of an invincible Divine Master, the 4 of them were nothing but butchered. They would be slaughtered. What was laughable was that the 4 of them not only did not run away, but also wanted to defeat him. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang waved his hand and took away their interspatial rings. In their interspatial rings, Jian Wushuang also found their identity tokens. By comparing the identities on the identity tokens with the list given by the goateed elder, Jian Wushuang soon learned their identities and knew the points he could get. The 2 ordinary Divine Masters are only worth 500 points, and the 2 advanced Divine Masters are even weaker. One of them is only worth 100 points. I can only get 1,200 points from the 4 of them. Jian Wushuang smiled bitterly. 1,200 points were still far from the 10,000 points he could get from the assessment. Let's continue. Jian Wushuang continued to move forward and began to kill. In Black Dragon Mountain, the killing had already begun. The experts on the list were scattered in every corner of Black Dragon Mountain. Some of them were still working together. The 5 immortal saints and 27 divine masters who participated in the assessment were frantically searching for the experts of Black Dragon Mountain and trying to kill them. The experts of Black Dragon Mountain were only trying to survive, while the participants were trying to get more points. For their own purposes, a bloody storm had begun on this land. All kinds of battles were happening on this land. In a flash, 2 days had passed. On a vast and empty land. Kill him! With a fierce shout, 5 figures, namely 5 peak divine masters, turned into 5 streams of light and attacked Jian Wushuang at an incredible speed. These 5 peak divine masters were all extraordinary in strength, and there were even 2 peak divine masters who had 1,000 points. If the 5 of them worked together and met an ordinary invincible divine master, they could really fight. However, the one they met was Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's figure was strange and ethereal. He moved freely in the void, bringing with him the power of endless spacetime rules. The 5 peak divine masters who were surrounding him could not capture his real body. Without any warning, he appeared behind a peak divine master and slashed out with his blood mountain sword. The peak divine master did not have time to react before his head was cut off by Jian Wushuang. Then Jian Wushuang's figure flashed 4 times in a row. Jian Wushuang also slashed out 4 times in a row, each of which chopped off someone's head. In the blink of an eye, the 5 great divine masters were all killed.